Ann Arbor, you're doing it. You're doing it. Welcome back. The second annual Entheofest. What a celebration. What an opportunity to come together, strength in numbers. We had a great prayer ceremony this morning. We had a prayer circle that came out on your behalf, and we asked the Creator and the spirits to be with us to make sure we had a good day, a pleasant day, and that all of you arrive safely, and that all of you will return home safely. My name is Midadigwi Anamush, translated the sound that a dog makes, and my friends call me Barking Dog. Barking Dog is one who will bark to warn and bark to protect, and I'm a loyal friend. I'm loyal to the Entheofest and to Ann Arbor. Aho. We're going to have some helpers today. Grandfather, Wabanon, we invite you to be with us today. Come see what we're doing. Help us. Give us that renewal. Give us that new blessing, that strength, that power that comes from that eastern direction. Grandfather, Kiwadong, Spirit of the North, we thank you. We invite you to come and be with us today. Bring us your purification. Bring us your strength. Bring us that wonderful blessing from the north. Kiwadong. Ishpaming, Grandfather from the south, we invite you to come and be with us today. Help us. Remind us who we are as two-legged, that we can walk softly and gently on Mother Earth, that we always remain humble. That little mouse, he comes from the south, and he is a representation of that direction. And we always use that little mouse. The least among us sometimes gives us the best message. We have to always remain humble. Wayanong, Grandfather from the west, we invite you to be with us today. Come and look upon us. Give us your wisdom. That direction from the north as we get old and we go in that direction, that final direction. That direction that gives us wisdom, that direction that gives us courage, that direction of fortitude. And that's what we need today. We need fortitude. How we approach the future. And the seventh generation, the new language of the seventh generation. It's not technological. It's ancient. It's 7G. Remember that, 7G. 7 generations to look into the future. The decisions you make today, make sure that they affect the 7 generations. And now I'll invite you, and I'm going to share with you a thought and an idea for a prayer. I wish you could all stand, if those of you could stand. And what we're going to do is we're going to show you in our culture how we pray. We say the earth is our church. And when you dance, there is no negativity. There is only neutral, peaceful love. There's a word that they use sometimes, they call it powwow. But that's not our language. That's not our word. That's the word that the Caucasian, the colonizer, gave to us, named us in the powwow. Our word is jinktamuk. So what I would like you to do is to learn how to pray with your feet, standing where you are. Jinktamuk, means bending of the knees. Can we see you do that? Just bending of the knees. Bending of the knees. Jinktamuk. And when you're at home and you want to pray, you can just do this. And your hands is a drum. Hey. And you jinktamuk. You pray with your feet. And that's how we do it. And now I gift that to you. Thank you, Ann Arbor. Have a great festival. And thank you to all the organizers for putting this together. Forever strong. Aho!
Thanks, buddy. Thank you, everybody. That was Daryl Brown, Barking Dog. Give it up for Daryl Brown, Barking Dog again, everyone. He was our keynote speaker last year. He's actually on the board of Council for Arts and Culture Affairs that was appointed by the governor of Michigan, serving a 2-year term, and also is an award-winning painter. You can find his surrealism and atavistic art at the National Congress of American Indians. We're getting started here today, and I'm really thankful to be here. My name is Jim Salame. I'm part of the Entheofest Planning Committee. It took a lot of people to put this together, a lot of student groups. I'd like to thank the University of Michigan for their help with everything and letting us use this wonderful space. I want to thank the Students Association for Psychedelic Studies, the student group here along with SSDP that helped us garner the license and their efforts in helping make this possible. THS Audio and Jesse Clayton, who you just saw play these amazing synthesizers for about an hour. He just released an album. Iridescence is a single that was released on Friday. You can find it at jesseclayton.com. So to get started, I want to bring up another protector. As Barking Dog is a protector of the earth, we have a protector here that's protecting us in Lansing, and that's Senator Jeff Irwin. Senator Jeff Irwin's been fighting for rights and causes like entheogen substances, but also for schools, environments, for our environment, and for the workers of Michigan. He's a graduate of the University of Michigan. For several years, he served on the House of Representatives for the city of Ann Arbor. And Jeff has been a champion in Lansing for the popular cannabis as well, helping pass the laws here that make cannabis legal in Michigan. He also introduced Senate Bill 631, which is helping to decriminalize plant medicines and fungi, which is what we're here for. But Jeff needs our help, and he's here to tell us more about that. And thank you so much. Please welcome Senator Jeff Irwin. Sir. Thank you, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you, everybody. Welcome to Entheofest 2022. All right. All right. Welcome to Ann Arbor. Welcome to Michigan. Welcome to the Earth. Welcome to the universe. Thank you for being here. This is an important place to be, and I'm happy to see you all. I'm honored to be here with you all, and I'm honored to represent this great community in the Michigan Senate. Thank you. Thank you. My name is Jeff Irwin, and I'm here because entheogenics have a long history of cultural and religious significance. They have true medical benefits that thousands of people are realizing and thousands more are going to realize in the future. And these are substances that are particularly unlikely to be abused and have a low propensity for abuse and a low negative impact on human health. And so when you look at that, when you come into a world and when you look at a legal system like we have here in the United States that makes substances like that strictly illegal, it makes you scratch your head and wonder why. It makes you wonder why. And that's why, as your state senator here in Ann Arbor, I've introduced Senate Bill 631. Senate Bill 631, if we pass it, will promise that no one will go to jail again for using a plant that opens their mind. So thank you for being here at Entheofest. Thank you for supporting that proposition. Thank you for being willing to roll up your sleeves and do the work necessary to spread that truth to our friends and our family and our neighbors. And I'm going to ask you to do a couple of things. First, I just want to let you know that this group here, the people who are here today, the people who are coming to Entheofest now, you're the leaders of this movement. And so the first thing I want to ask you to do is I want to ask you to make sure that this movement continues and grows in a way that serves our values of love and togetherness. We need to fight this fight, and we need to do it in a way that makes sure that when we legalize these substances, that they're done in a way that serves community and serves humans and isn't done in a way that is, first commercial, right? You're the ones, you're here early. You're the ones who can shape that culture of how this movement develops. So I want to ask you to continue that. I want to ask you to hold on to those values. I want to ask you to continue to walk those values. The second thing I want to ask you to do is I want to ask you to get way more political than you are right now. There's an old saying in politics that goes, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And when I scratch my head and I wonder why is it that entheogenic plants are strictly illegal? Why is it that people who are using these substances to cure themselves or to open their minds are going to jail? It's because we're not political. We're on the menu. What I need you to do is I need you to reach out to your city council people, your mayor, your judges, your state representatives, your state senators, and ask them, where do you stand? Do you think people should go to jail for using these substances? Do you support decriminalizing and legalizing entheogenic substances in Michigan? I want you to ask that question. Will you ask your legislators if they support legalizing entheogenic substances? Can I enlist you in this movement? Can I get you to take an action? When you leave this beautiful day, when you leave this beautiful Diag, when you leave this celebration of these entheogens that you're here to show appreciation of and celebrate, I want you to remember my ask, that tomorrow you pick up that phone, you open up your computer, you send that email, you make that phone call, and you get your legislators, your local leaders in the position of answering that question, because that's where we are in this movement. We just legalized cannabis 4 years ago. That took a long time. That took a lot of these conversations. We've got a lot of conversations if we want to get to the truth. Because right now, the wool has been pulled over the public's eyes. You've got a whole bunch of conservative politicians in there who aren't seeing the truth, and they're only going to see it if you pull back that will, if you open their eyes, if you be the one that makes that call, that sends that email, that shows up at that town hall and asks the uncomfortable question that has to be asked. And that question is, do you think people should go to jail for using a plant that has medical benefits, religious and cultural significance, and a low propensity for abuse? So thank you for having me today. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being willing to take that action. And thanks for getting a little bit more political than you wanted to when you came to Entheofest today. Thank you.
Thank you, buddy. You're the best. Have a great Sunday. Jeff Irwin, Senator Jeff Irwin, everybody. Hey, so here's an announcement. Underneath the table, where that white awning there is, underneath that big tree, there's a community painting project we're doing. And even if you're not creative, please head over there and help join and make that a communal painting. Our next speaker is a current PhD candidate at the University of Michigan in the Department of Molecular Integration and Physiology. His thesis work is focused on investigating the biology and function of indigenous or naturally produced DMT in the mammalian brain. He is the Vice President of Students Association for Psychedelic Studies, our partner at the Entheofest today, and is the co-founder of interdisciplinary group Psychedelic Neuroscience and Therapy. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nicholas Glynos.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to acknowledge that there are so many voices that deserve to be heard today, and I'd like to express my gratitude for being given the opportunity to share mine. And I am a PhD student here at the university, and about 5 years ago when I first set out to study psychedelics, I emailed as many of the psychedelic researchers that I could find at the time. And at that time, there was about a dozen or so people. And now, today, there's not only way more people that are researching and studying psychedelics, there's dozens of psychedelic research centers across the country, including right here at the University of Michigan. The Michigan Psychedelic Center was just launched last week, and we're clearly now entering into a new era of psychedelic research. And all of my emailing about 5 years ago ended up paying off, because I was lucky enough to find a position here researching the mysterious compound dimethyltryptamine, aka DMT. And DMT is so interesting to me, not just because of the profound experiences that it can elicit, but because this chemical is naturally produced by our own bodies. It's inside of each and every one of us, and we don't know why. As you might remember Terence McKenna saying about DMT, we're all holding. And my research has been focused on precisely that question. trying to understand why our bodies make this substance. In other words, why do we have a psychedelic chemical floating around inside of our bodies? And what is its role? Well, after several years of intense study on this question, I came here today to tell you, we don't know. Why? One reason is because science moves really, really slow. The process requires years of testing hypotheses, challenging assumptions, and designing compelling experiments. But I hope to think that our work here is contributing to future study where we might find a better understanding of how DMT works in the body. But over those 5 years when I was toiling away in the lab, pipetting solutions, analyzing samples, look around us today. Look where the psychedelic movement has taken us, right here in our home of Ann Arbor. It was almost, and all of these phenomenal achievements that we've achieved today were only made possible by the efforts of so many thoughtful and hardworking people in our communities. So I think we owe all of them and everyone around us a great deal of gratitude. And while the question of trying to understand the role of DMT in the body is certainly worth investigating, potentially more interesting and more rich is the collective experiences of all of us who have come together to support a cause today that is truly worth fighting for. And more recently, a branch of our research at the university has aimed at learning more about those collective experiences of the psychedelic users within our community. And we came here to Entheofest last year, and we surveyed many of you, asking about your experiences and your thoughts on the psychedelic movement. And I'm excited to share today that we've been able to successfully publish that research in peer-reviewed journals, thereby making your voices heard within the broader scientific community. So thank you to all the participants who contributed to that work. And if you're interested in contributing again, please find our table in the back to take the 2022 version of the survey. And finally, over the past several years, the news and headlines surrounding the psychedelic movement have been dominated by the science and policy surrounding these substances. But we must not forget that these advancements have been largely informed and catalyzed by a diverse group of voices that have been doing this work for far longer than the current psychedelic renaissance. This includes the practitioners who have carried on rich cultural traditions, the brave underground facilitators who continued the work despite repressive legal status, and the psychonauts and activists like all of us who are here today supporting the freedoms of consciousness. I'm simultaneously grateful, proud, and humbled to be involved in this exciting time of psychedelic work, and I'm constantly inspired by the efforts of everyone who has contributed to psychedelic decriminalization and destigmatization. So thank you very much.
That was Nick, everybody. It's so great to see people researching that. Folks, another announcement. We have an after party. It's on the other side of town on First Street. It's at Cirque and Roots. It starts around 4:20 and goes till 10 o'clock. There are 2 stages, a bunch of DJs. There'll be some T-shirt giveaways. It's going to be a great time, so hopefully we can see you there. Our next speaker is also here at the University of Michigan. Kevin Boehnke is a research assistant and professor in the Department of Anesthesiology and for the Chronic Pain and Fatigue Research Center. Kevin recently received his doctorate from the University of Michigan School of Public Health. Yeah, that's a lot of work. And is also a yoga instructor, which is also a lot of work. The goal of his research program is to rigorously assess appropriate use of cannabis and psychedelics and to help address the harms caused by their criminalization. In fact, at a dispensary that I used to help run in town called the Home of Medicine, he worked on a study that showed an opiate use droppage of 64% among our patients that use the entheogen cannabis. And we're so thankful for Kevin for that. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kevin Boehnke.
Thanks, Jim, for that lovely welcome, and thank you to all of you for being here today and for all the things that you do. It's truly a pleasure to be with you all today. I do want to say that the views that I express today are my own. They do not represent any official position of the University of Michigan, just to put that out there. So in my official capacity, I study cannabis and psychedelics. I want to understand how they can be effectively used to help people manage chronic pain. And in that context, I lead many survey studies, like the ones that Jim mentioned, really figuring out what people are doing now, what the outcomes of that use are, and then how integrated these compounds are into medicine. Spoiler, it's not too much, unfortunately. I'm also conducting clinical trials to best understand how cannabis and psilocybin-assisted therapy can be effective and potentially impact chronic pain, which is so difficult to treat these days. And as somebody who actually has a chronic pain diagnosis myself, somebody who personally understands the inadequacy of most of those available treatment options, I am honored to be able to contribute towards a better understanding of how to use these substances in a thoughtful and realistic way to help people manage that pain. So in this vein, I'm especially grateful to all of you and appreciative of the event organizers for all of the advocacy work that makes events like this possible and is changing policy both in Michigan and then throughout the country. It is incredibly important to understand how entheogens and psychedelics actually affect people medically, and going beyond that medical use, the work that you all are doing is essential. The work that you all are doing is essential to address the societal pain and suffering caused by the federal prohibition of these drugs. We all know that these are powerful medicines, and figuring out how to use them thoughtfully and with appropriate societal and interpersonal supports remains critical. So I personally don't believe that there's a one-size-fits-all solution to working with these medicines in a respectful and careful way. So let's figure it out together. We can draw from the collective experience of all the people here, the traditional and indigenous wisdom that has informed the use of these compounds for millennia, science, and then all the experiences that you all have had. And to echo what Nick said previously, you shared that in the survey we conducted last year. We were able to publish those results. We want to follow up on that this year. And the key finding from that, in fact, that you showed us is that despite the positive experiences that many of you report having, is that there's not really an opportunity to speak about that within mainstream medicine with healthcare providers to get, say, that preparation or integration or other sort of therapeutic support that could make these experiences more meaningful and more healing. So we hope in that vein, you will continue to share your insights with us so we can be responsive scientifically, so we can advocate for policy, like Senator Irwin mentioned, to help move these things forward. And again, if you would like to participate, there's a white tent in the back where you can share your experiences with us via another survey that we plan on publishing the results for again this year. And so thank you in advance to all of you who choose to participate. So in closing, obviously we're at a decriminalization event. I believe all these compounds should be decriminalized. They have amazing therapeutic potential and are a tool not only to help us reconnect more fully to ourselves in a healing way, but also to our living planet. I don't think that they're a panacea, but do believe that some people may benefit from them. And so as we move forward, let's create thoughtful policy that facilitates safe experiences and spaces for the people who choose to use these medicines. And with that, again, thank you so much for your kind attention, and wishing you all a wonderful afternoon on this lovely day.
Thank you, Kevin. Kevin Boehnke, everyone. So another announcement. We've found a Michigan driver's license, Kelly Govitz. Kelly Govitz, we have your driver's license if you've misplaced it. If you haven't, then something's going on. Kelsey Taylor is our next speaker. She believes wholeheartedly that mushrooms can save the world, heal the planet, our bodies, minds, and souls. She's a champion of the holistic wellness modalities and is an experienced educator and advocate for plant medicine. She earned her master's degree in public health, studying the effects of psychedelics and associated stigma on addiction recovery, and is leading the effort to decriminalize nature, Ferndale. Kelsey facilitates safe and equitable access to psychedelic education. Please welcome a big round of applause for Kelly Taylor. Kelsey Taylor. Kelsey Taylor.
Okay, I'm a lot shorter than all these guys. All right. How is everyone today? That good, great. Great. Thank you all for being here. It's a real honor to share this communal space with people who are like-minded and interested in the preservation of deep indigenous wisdom and furthering our communities and society. So thank you all. I'm wondering how many people have experience with someone suffering from substance use disorder, raise of hands. Yeah, a lot of us out there have known someone who's been impacted by substance use disorder, and less than a third of the people diagnosed are actually receiving treatment. So in grad school for public health, I conducted a survey about using psychedelics as a treatment for addiction recovery. And more than 23 million adults in the United States are afflicted. And recent and current studies have proven the efficaciousness of psychedelics as a treatment. And yet psychedelics remain one of the few treatments where users are directly stigmatized for their use and for their treatments. So this is kind of our effort here of decriminalizing, of creating safe and equitable access for these treatments that are so effective in some of these unseen but deeply felt afflictions that we all experience. So some of the recent studies that these plants and fungi have been used for show that, for instance, psilocybin increased abstinence in participants with alcohol dependence. 9 out of 15 smokers in a study who received psilocybin were still abstaining after 16 months after their sobriety. How many of you have tried to quit smoking, drinking, anything, right? It's a bitch. Oops, sorry. So it really plagues us, and this is medicine that can help. So the decriminalization effort is to make these medicines safe and accessible without it being a crime. So thank you all for your participation here, for showing up, for showing your support, and being a part of this movement, kind of bringing it back into media. Our ancestors, our indigenous elders have known this and have used these medicines for thousands of years, and only now is Western medicine turning its lens, its gaze there. So this is important that we protect this, that we advocate it, and that we make it possible for everyone. So I think that's all. Thank you all.
Nice job. And the reason why I said Kelly is because her name is Kelly. That's why. Sorry. Hey, everybody. Okay. A quick announcement between speakers. I want to thank Unity Vibration for the use of their van. They helped us get our van and take a lot of this stuff in today. So Unity Vibrations, thank you. They also had a pre-party last night. They're located in Ypsilanti, and they make an incredible kombucha. Ladies and gentlemen, our next speaker is a real champion here in Washtenaw County. Ellie Savit is the elected prosecuting attorney. He's a former civil rights and public interest attorney, a law clerk for the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Mr. Savit also put in place a number of new policies since taking office that prioritize harm reduction and turned the page on the war on drugs. Let's close the book on the war. Shortly after he was elected, Washtenaw County Prosecutor's Office became the first county in the country to decriminalize entheogenic plants and fungi in January of 2021. Please give a big round of applause for our county prosecutor, Ellie Savit.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, thank you, and it's a great day to be back at Entheofest. So, let me tell you this. We're here to celebrate the anniversary of when Ann Arbor made the prosecution and the expenditure of law enforcement resources of entheogenic plants its absolute lowest priority. And when they did that, and great credit to the Ann Arbor City Council, when they did that, I had just gotten elected, and I was preparing to take office. And there were a number of really weighty, tough decisions that we had to make about how we were going to run our office. I'm here to tell you this. Not prosecuting the use or possession of entheogenic plants was not a tough call. And that's true for a couple of reasons. Number one, how arbitrary would it be for plants to be functionally decriminalized in the city of Ann Arbor, but us to turn around and prosecute people for them if they happen to be on the other side of US 23? But the other thing we did, and this is something that may seem a little bit odd for government sometimes, we actually looked at the research and we looked at the science, and the wisdom of this became absolutely crystal clear. Because what we know, entheogenic plants are not addictive, they are not associated with violent behavior, they have therapeutic effects. In fact, if you read the studies, which I encourage policymakers to do, they're associated, in many cases, with a decrease in violent behavior. So why on earth would we be prosecuting people, potentially sending people to jail for exercising their personal freedom to use entheogenic plants in a safe way, in a therapeutic way, in a religious way, when we know it does not cause any harm whatsoever? So, we don't prosecute that. We haven't prosecuted that. We're not going to start prosecuting that. But I mentioned that arbitrariness that first struck me, about how arbitrary it would be if we continued to prosecute in Ypsilanti and Pittsfield Township, but they were functionally decriminalized in Ann Arbor. You heard from Jeff Irwin, our great state senator. That arbitrariness continues to be in effect across the state of Michigan. We've made great progress in decriminalizing entheogenic plants. We don't prosecute them. Detroit just decriminalized. I know Hazel Park just decriminalized, right? We're making progress, but we still are faced with the inequity of the fact that if you're driving through certain counties, certain communities, you may be subject to prosecution, and in other parts of the state, you're not. The answer to this is quite simple. We need to continue fighting to decriminalize once and for all, statewide and then across the country. For far too long, we have been perpetuating the war on drugs to no good effect. And this is the low-hanging fruit. We should be moving quickly to stop imposing harm when people exercise their personal freedom to use natural plants in a safe way. I have heard from so many people about the benefits that they've experienced. Folks with PTSD, folks that use entheogenic plants in a religious manner. And to involve the criminal legal system in those choices is not only a waste of resources, it is flatly immoral, and we must stop it. So, as long as we're in office, you don't got to worry in Washtenaw County. But I'll close by echoing what Senator Irwin said. This is a movement that is gaining steam, that is gaining momentum, that is gaining adherents every single year. When we stood here last year, entheogenic plants weren't yet decriminalized in Detroit, Michigan's biggest city, for example. So we're making progress, but it needs to be uniform. Please, do as the senator said. Contact your legislators. Share your stories. The momentum is on our side, but we've got to keep up the fight. We've got to keep up the pressure, and we cannot rest until once and for all we've turned the page on the counterproductive era of criminalization of entheogenic plants, and everybody is free across Michigan. Thank you very much.
That's powerful. We need that energy in this movement. Ladies and gentlemen, also from the Prosecutor's Office of Washtenaw County, we have our Chief Assistant Prosecutor, Victoria Burton Harris, with us today. Prior to her appointment to office, Victoria spent her career working as a criminal defense and family law attorney. Victoria's philosophy is that we will not punish our way out of crime and into safer communities. That will only come from us investing in our people and addressing the root causes of harmful behavior. Please welcome Victoria Burton Harris.
Thank you. Thank you. Good afternoon. Y'all can do better than that. Good afternoon. Y'all just made me feel so loved and welcome. Thank you for that. On my way here, I was leaving home and told my husband where I was going, and he knew that I shared this same space with you all last year, and he said, so what are you going to say this year? And I said, well, I'm going to share with them a concern I have, and then I'm going to ask them to do something for me. And he goes, you're always asking people to do things for you when you get up and speak in front of them. But that's my style. So just know I have a request coming before I leave this podium. The concern I want to share with you all is very simply one of inclusivity. Look around this diag. Do you see many people standing around you that look like me? No. Is that a problem? Hell yes. This movement is gaining steam, as my partner Ellie said, but what it also is doing is being whitewashed. We are forgetting to honor African and indigenous people who have been using these plants since the beginning of time. We are forgetting that these plants have been used in sacred and religious ceremonies. We are forgetting that these plants have been used to reconnect with ancestors that have left us. We are forgetting and we are failing to reconnect the fact that African and African American people could benefit from this plant that so many others who don't look like them currently are, but for failure to include them. After Tuskegee, the Tuskegee syphilis experiment, of course, there are a lot of black folks in this country who are not going to just raise their hand and submit to an experiment and to medical studies. Well, guess what? That just means you have to work harder. That means that you need black researchers. That means that you need to allow black researchers to actually lead some of this research. The studies that are being done do not, sadly, include the positive effect that these plants have on black and brown folks. When we are starting to see black researchers take the lead and step out front to do those studies, do you know what we are finding? We are finding that the generational trauma that black folks live with due to racism in this country, there is so much healing that can be done in sacred spaces with the use and assistance of these plants. And that's what I'm going to ask you to do for me today. I'm asking for you all to commit to making diversity in this movement a priority. I'm asking you to commit to not just having conversations about anti-racism, but actually doing the work to help people heal from the decades and generations of racism. That work looks like centering Black lives. That work looks like putting them out front and making sure that they are included in the studies that are being done and in the research, because no one should be telling our story but us. And right now, we are not able to tell our story because of the whitewashing of this movement. Due to the failed war on drugs and the history of this country with Black folks, we are not afforded the same opportunities as many of you on this diag are to have some very powerful conversations in powerful places with powerful people. And that's why this ask that I'm making of you is so important. Don't just go home and share this revelation with your spouse or your neighbor. When you advocate, advocate with us in mind and bring us with you. When we honor all people that have rich, deep history with these plants, that's when we will really start to see this movement take off, and take off in a way that all of us will benefit, and not just the few of us. Thank you.
Those are hard truths right there, and something we all should take from this day and live throughout our lives with this in mind. Thank you, Victoria. Our next speaker entered active duty service in the U.S. Army Infantry from 2000 to 2004, including deployments to Kosovo with the 1st Infantry Division, and Operation Iraqi Freedom with the 10th Mountain Division. In addition, he served from 2004 to 2006 with the Michigan Army National Guard. He was the former director of Decriminalized Grand Rapids, which decriminalized cannabis in 2012 in the city. After that, he served as a board member for MI Legalize from 2015 to 2018. And that's part of the coalition that helped pass Prop 1, which helped legalize cannabis in the state. He recently served on the Veterans Subcommittee for Decriminalized Nature in Michigan. Please welcome Michael J. Tuffelmire. Infantry. I can't say the word infantry. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everybody, for being here. And thank you, anybody here who is a fellow veteran, for coming. You are in the right place. By the way, we have a Decriminalized Nature table over there where you can learn about the movement. And also, there's a veteran resource table over there if you need that. You know, on my way over here, I was thinking about a lot of veterans in my unit who have gone before me. And I'm not necessarily talking about those who died in combat in my unit, but I'm talking about those who died of their wounds afterwards, mostly from mental health, PTSD, and TBIs that they just never were able to pull away. And I don't think a lot of people understand that, yes, there is a lot of suicides, but it's piling up to the point in a lot of these units that now after 20 years, there's more suicides than there were people who actually died in combat. I know in my unit it comes around every March because of something that happened. So every March we wait for the next guy to kill himself, and it happens almost on an annual basis. And so then I start thinking to myself about hallucinogens and plant-based medicines and mushrooms and things of that nature, and how they've helped myself and others, and how so many of these guys I know, if they had just had one dose, we'd still have them here today. But see, to them, they're told that those things are poison and that alcohol is the right thing, right? And the commercialized things over the counter is the right thing. So that's what they chose instead of that. But that being said, sometimes it's hard because the brotherhood and sisterhood of these units were very tight. We have our own sort of world, our own sort of regulations. I remember during cannabis, they always said, because the unit I'm from is very prestigious, and they didn't want me to use my unit to try to better cannabis because they said, you're watering it down, you're making us look like we're criminals. And I never really let that stop me. And I thought to myself, I really can't let this next movement to decriminalize and hopefully eventually somehow legalize or dose plant-based medicines and hallucinogens can help people. So I come back out here. I was on the subcommittee for Decriminalize Nature, and I tried to talk to other vets, and I feel like we are bringing it there. And I think what a lot of people don't understand is, a lot of vets like myself, we're tired of the suicides. We're tired of the same thing being done at the VA and having the same results. And a lot of people with PTSD or military sexual trauma and other things, they live a life of quiet desperation. They have a lot of things going on in their head, and sometimes their head starts to spin and they can't get these thoughts out of their head, and these, like the VA would call it, the stinking thinking. And so they start to spin out of control. And instead of asking for help, they push those away who they love, usually in an angry fashion. Somehow that will make that person sort of say, okay, well, the hell with you. And a lot of times they just can't stop it. And for a lot of us vets, depending on what of the 83 counties you're from here in the state, you don't have a lot of resources. So there's not going to be a lot of help from Uncle Sam to stop it. So you reach for things, right? Drinking, hard street drugs, violence, things of that nature. But what they're starting to realize is that, all this stuff in their head, those are pathways of trauma. And those might not be able to be totally healed, but they certainly can be fixed in some respects using the new science that we know about, using these substances we're talking about here today. And so I encourage everybody, whether they served or they know someone who served, to pretty much engage them, let them know about what's going on, and let them know there's a lot of people out there like myself who are doing it. I mean, I'm pretty out there, and a lot of guys aren't. But you'd be amazed at lately the veterans I talk to, very conservative, hardcore vets, who are starting to use these substances because they're becoming more available. Things like MDMA and other things. Imagine your grandfather doing that, and he might be doing that when he's not yelling at you. So I just want you to think about that, and I want you to think that like a lot of these vets you might see who do have these issues are probably much hurt inside, and their hearts are breaking, but they're not willing to tell you that, so they're just going to show you a hard, angry exterior because that's what they've been taught to do. But I think if you just go and tell them that these things can help, we can cut down on a lot of the deaths. Thank you very much.
That was Michael, everybody. I have an announcement. There's a Michigan Cannabis Rally, a harvest rally in Lansing on October 11th, 2022. Please show up. That's at 100 North Capitol Ave in Lansing, Michigan. You can contact michiganweedsters@gmail.com if you want to know more information. Our next speaker, Reverend Mariela, is a spiritual teacher. She's from Grand Rapids, and she's a community minister of Afro-Caribbean ancestry. Please welcome Reverend Mariela.
Thank you. Beautiful people. I wish you could see yourself from over here. It's a nice view. I love your style. I love how some of you are embodying your freedom today. Because so much about this work is about freedom and liberation. I'm Reverend Mariela, and I was born in Cuba, and I consider myself a daughter of the revolution for a long time. The revolution that took place before my birth, but I mention it because I am a product of what happens when the social fabric of a society is shifted completely. I am a product of the Cuban Revolution that did not bring what we expected. But I mention it because I know a thing or two about revolutions. And I can't help but to feel so excited about the revolution that is taking place here and now. It's one of the most exciting revolutions ever. It's the revolution of human consciousness. In fact, it's more than a revolution, it's an evolution. The evolution of our own humanity. And of course, the plants are playing the leading role in this evolution, aren't they not? Of course, the intelligence that created the world and which runs through all of nature is part of this process. Because, of course, we humans are not individual islands. We are part of a larger ecosystem of intelligence, of consciousness, helping us all to evolve. How can you criminalize that? That should be criminalized. I stand here with deepest gratitude for the benevolence of life that gives us access to these medicines, these sacraments, that not only give us access to the divine, but that are helping us to break glass ceiling after glass ceiling of what we thought reality was, of what we thought being human was, of what we thought God was. These medicines, these sacraments are here, among other things, to help us break our ego, by which I mean the social programming of empire. Empire came and took from my ancestors their medicines, their practices, their languages, their way of being in this world. Empire has exploited and continues to exploit everything on its path, including our nervous systems. I stand here before you a survivor of trauma. Trauma sucks. Trauma, how can we live knowing the amount of trauma that is in our communities, inflicted by those patriarchal colonial systems? I don't know you, beloveds, but my heart cannot bear the many maladies that plague our humanity today. It is heartbreaking to see the level of despair, emptiness, hopelessness, depression, anxiety, and trauma in our communities. So many of us are chronically exhausted and overwhelmed, living under these oppressive systems, some of us more than others. But change is coming. Change is happening. The revolution is here. The revolution is now. We engage in this work for many reasons, including the decolonization of our psyches, in order to do our own individual work and our collective work of healing and liberation, to bring forth the new earth, the more beautiful world our hearts know is possible. And so, I thank you for being here. I thank you for engaging in this work, for being part of this evolution of consciousness. And I have a question for you. What role do you play in the revolution? How can you support this movement from a place of soul, from a place of heart, from a place of truth? I'm going to close with a blessing for your soul, the intelligent force of nature that moves through you, which is separate from the ego, the programming of the empire. May you, beautiful beloveds, hear the call of your soul beckoning you to become all of who you are. May you feel the pull of evolution propelling you towards the fullness of your being. May you sense that liberating current within you, wanting to free you, the sacred life force of creation moving through you, creating a new earth, a new society through you. May you remember that the gifts of your soul are not just yours alone. They are for the community. May you claim these gifts. May you give of those gifts generously, authentically, and sustainably. May it be so. I love you.
It's a lot of love out here, everybody. I love it. And it's just, we're going to keep on bringing you great speakers all day here today. So please stick around. This next person has been an advocate for plant medicines and everything since the 70s. He was one of the original people that helped get that law down for cannabis possession here in the city of Ann Arbor for I think it was $25 back in the 70s. Chuck Ream is a 33-year kindergarten teacher as well, a 20-year township trustee, and a licensed professional counselor. He organized many successful marijuana ballot initiatives, as I mentioned, beginning with the medical marijuana for Ann Arbor. Chuck founded MI Legalize to legalize marijuana in Michigan. That's big. He's the secretary of Decriminalized Nature in Michigan, and he's all about winning. Ladies and gentlemen, Chuck Ream. Thanks, Chuck. Have a good time.
Yeah. It is so fine to see the new generation, to see all of you here today. Greetings from 1967 when I started tripping. Today, we celebrate the joy of knowing that the Mother God has put on earth every plant and every molecule that we need to live a happy life, and freedom for people who use the teaching, healing, and ecstatic plants is important beyond measure. Nothing can do what they do. On a day such as this, I hate to bring very bad news, but I must. Sorry, really bad news. I just read another book by James Lovelock, the originator of the Gaia theory of the Earth, the idea that the Earth is a self-regulating organism that works to keep everything within the bounds necessary for life to thrive. Lovelock shows that the Earth's mechanisms of self-regulation are breaking down. By the end of this century, certainly by the end of the next century, the Earth will have entered a planetary fever, which will raise temperatures greatly and last more than 100,000 years. You got that one? Billions of people will die. You got that one? Explains Lovelock, and the remaining humans will cluster around the poles. I thought, this book's really going to scare everybody. And then I realized it was published 16 years ago. Life on Earth will never be the same again. When humans comprehend this, when humans really understand this, we know that anxiety and depression and drug use and overdose and suicide will skyrocket. We have hardly seen the beginning of drug use or suicide or any of the rest of it. Our job is to be sure that there are good drugs available, molecules that will help bring out the best in people, that will help civilization to survive, rather than just drugs that can kill people and help civilization to kill itself. We need to succeed, and also capitalism will produce these products. Cannabis and psychedelics are the wave of the future in pharmacology. More than 50 publicly traded psychedelic companies are listed on U.S. stock exchanges alone, and the biggest companies are in Europe, with nothing legal yet, nothing even legal. Our job is to make sure that these plants enjoy complete freedom for individual, therapeutic, spiritual, and ecstatic use without government in the way. Personally, if these mushrooms became legalized, I would work with terminally ill patients to end their anxiety about death. Death anxiety is a mind-bending terror. Scientific data about the efficacy of cannabis is overwhelming with this. Psychedelics catalyze new perspectives, creating profound and long-lasting improvements in mental well-being of terminal patients who received a single dose of psilocybin. Now get this, it's the mystical states. The mystical states offer a chance to not identify with the failing body, but instead identify with something much more enduring, like whole new dimensions of consciousness and understanding. The mystical experience itself has always been shown by research to be the most basic factor in the transformative therapeutic outcome. 65 to 85, think about this, 65 to 85% of terminally ill patients can have their existential distress relieved. There are two paths ahead for psychedelics. There's the nonprofit, sacred, community-building path, and there's the pharmacological path, and we absolutely need both. One effect of psychedelics can be a fundamental joy in your soul, a happiness that is beyond understanding in words. We all know that, and we must share this joy that we have discovered with each other here today and take our knowledge forward to share with this sick society. I want every one of you, I'm old now, it's up to you to stand strong, to believe in yourself and your brothers and sisters, and to find that transcendent love in your own life and to spread it. May love and peace be with you.
That was Chuck Ream, everybody. Wow, thank you, Chuck. I've got another rally to talk to you all about. It's on October 18th, and that's also at the Capitol. And this is for DNMI, to show your support for decriminalizing entheogens, which is what today is all about. So again, October 18th, and that's going to be at 11 a.m. to 2:22 p.m. That's sponsored by the Michigan Initiative for Healing, for Community Healing here, also known as MISH. Our next speaker is a former president for the Students Association for Psychedelic Studies. He was a big part of the Entheofest inaugural year of last year, where he helped us organize this. Moss Herberholz works as a therapist at a radical well-being center in Southfield, Michigan, where he does psychedelic integration and adventure therapy. He recently graduated from U of Mich with his MSW, which is a Master's in Social Work, where he served as a president of Student Association for Psychedelic Studies. Over the summer, he worked as a therapist for Bar Midbar, which is the first Jewish adventure therapy program in the U.S., and in his free time, he loves to dance, ID fungus, sing, slackline, and spin fire. Folks, welcome Moss Herberholz.
Hello, thank you everyone for coming to this event. For many years, I worked with kids with disabilities in schools. Behavior modification is often used within this setting to replace what adults deem to be supposed behaviors, problem behaviors, with what they consider to be more acceptable behavior. Within this system of behavioral change, the conventional wisdom is that it is unethical to remove a so-called problematic behavior without providing an adequate alternative behavior. I've observed a parallel between behavior modification in schools and how we treat substance use in our society. Abstinence-only policies and rehab are problematic and dangerous when adequate community support and adequate time for healing has not been given before someone decides to reduce or end the use of substances. For many people, substances are a useful coping strategy, regardless of if they also sometimes have problematic outcomes. I want to be clear that it is important to acknowledge and address circumstances in which harm is being done to others, and those circumstances need to be addressed. And the truth of the matter is that oftentimes there aren't severe negative impacts for others when somebody is using a substance to help themselves. Our current system of forced abstinence without adequate assistance often fails people. Instead, I recommend that we work to help support people meet their basic needs and work through their challenges to achieve healing, growth, and connection before supporting them in reducing or ending their relationship to substances at a pace that works for them, and only if they want to. We blame drugs as the cause of people's difficulties rather than understanding that they are tools that help people in crisis in relieving their suffering, while disregarding the cause of those difficulties, such as trauma, anxiety, depression, and disconnection. It's a convenient way to ignore the ugly truth that our society breeds discontent, disconnection, and distress. For those who benefit from a world in which drugs exist as a convenient scapegoat for our society's challenges, a continued focus on drugs as the quote-unquote problem perpetuates a world that continues to breed the actual problems that lead some people to rely on substances as a means of coping. It is time to end the racist war on drugs. I'll say it again, and I'll say it over and over and over. It is time to end the racist war on drugs. It is time to treat people who use substances ethically, with care and compassion, and help those who want assistance in changing their relationship to substances in a way that works for them. Thank you.
Oh, that was great. Folks, our next speaker is known as the TeaFaerie. She has been a writer, nanny, actress, flow arts teacher, childbirth doula, homeless person, aid worker, live action storyteller, toy inventor, app designer, street performer, and party promoter. Before the pandemic, she worked as a psychedelic sanctuary volunteer at about 25 festivals a year, and her column called Tea Time Psychedelic Musings from the Center of the Universe appears on the excellent psychedelic information site, erowid.org. You can ask me what that is later if you'd like. Please welcome the TeaFaerie.
This is a story. That was a metaphor. This is a story that has been told many times. This is a story that has been told many times. This is a story that has been told many times. That last one was a true story. The first one was a setup, and the one in the middle was a self-fulfilling prophecy. The world is made of language. That's a quotation. The trickster made this world. That one is a myth. The trickster is an archetype, sophisticated model. The trickster can't be trusted. Okay, that one's tautological. The trickster has a silver tongue. The trickster is a liar. The trickster gave us language, drugs, technology, and fire, knowing full well that we'd fuck it up, with no hint of remorse, because there's only one way to evolve, and that's let nature take its course. That was a poem. And the next one's a riddle. The trickster loves a good riddle. How do you spin up a goddess out of stardust and sunshine? Once upon a time, the fairies threw a very fancy party. It was a fundraising party. And they invited all of the donors and the sponsors to come and listen to them rub each other's backs and to toot each other's horns, you know what I mean? And they neglected to invite and welcome in and honor that one sort of embarrassing and brash and perhaps a little bit less than entheogenic fairy who often laughed a bit too loud and sometimes drank just a little bit too much and who occasionally scratched herself in rude places and who sometimes said the quiet part out loud. And this is a fairy tale, obviously, but I don't even need to finish telling it to you because you all know how it ends, right? Because you know how stories always go. You know, TLDR, surprise, surprise, she shows up anyway and pranks the living shit out of their fancy pants fundraising party. Look, they told me I only had the 10 minutes, so I'm going to have to cut a little bit of very clever verbiage here and get to the cut to the chase. The trickster does not, exist, except for in the sense that it does. So it's a little bit difficult to describe. And like other manifestations of psychedelic concern, there are multiple ways to frame one's understanding of it. The word God makes a lot of people uneasy, especially folks who were raised in and around Levantine traditions in which evolution is not a good thing, and in fact, the Creator God doesn't really want us to evolve because it's afraid of us. You know, like, don't let them get to that other tree, because otherwise it'd be like, let your AI going to singularize or something, and the creations might have ambiguous feelings about their creators for some reason. So I guess you could also think about the trickster as the devil. Or if you fancy that you're too sophisticated for that malarkey, you can frame it as an aspect of the unconscious mind or the collective unconscious that is responsible for breaking down the calcified illusions of the ego that are no longer serving us and make room for something new and unexpected and often wildly beautiful and evolutionary to occur. And it somehow has a broad and subtle and sometimes rather strikingly unsubtle sense of humor. I don't want to start any blasphemous rumors. That was a song, but don't really count. Anywho, I told the folks in Black Rock City that the trickster's like the playa, which it is, and it didn't, because, trickster, I'd like to go both ways. But I don't know how many of y'all are familiar with Burning Man and know how the playa like to do you. But you do know how psychedelic drugs are like to do you. And so I should be able to say that it's like that, and you would get it. But I'm not at all certain anymore that even the vast majority of attendees at a psychedelic conference would know about the trickster, because it is not a part of the narrative that we have been telling. And, of course, the story is always changing as we develop new models. And so an oldest model was framed by the folks who've been doing it the longest. The plant teachers are entities in and of themselves, and they open doorways through which one can interact with a fully developed and energetic ecology that we're embedded within, and it can be a very tricksy place indeed, and they can help us level up and orient ourselves within the larger cosmos, and they can give us superpowers and maybe even heal us while they're at it when they do. And in the global West, where we're far too sophisticated, we like to imagine, for all that quote-unquote nonsense, we started out with this idea that psychedelics are psychomimetic, right? So that's to say they can give us a glimpse into the phenomenology of psychosis and maybe get a peek under the hood so that we can observe the mechanisms of the ego and the unconscious and the archetypal energies that underlie the conscious mind. And that's pretty good as far as it goes. I mean, it wasn't exactly not true. Just like Newton wasn't wrong about classical mechanics, it just clearly wasn't telling the whole story. And then some folks started to say, wait, no, I get it. These are shortcuts to some state with a Sanskrit name. They give us insight into whatever it is that the contemplative communities have been on about, which we might want to try to get into a little bit late in the game, because it turns out, and yet again, surprise, surprise, that these states are not really, as we had supposed, merely verbal constructs without a referent, and yet again, they were not wrong. Oh, but wait, there's more. And now today, we got a new thing going on with the medicalization of psychedelics, which I like to call the Make Drugs Boring Again movement. And it says, this is how it goes. They say that drugs have been demonized. These drugs that have been demonized are, in fact, wonderful medicines. That they are godsends for people who are struggling with PTSD and with depression and anxiety and autism and OCD and generalized dysphoria. And, of course, it's all true. Psychedelic drugs, when taken in a therapeutic context in the presence of a licensed and qualified therapist as part of a balanced breakfast that includes some more traditional therapeutic modalities, and will work absolute miracles with respect to all of the conditions I mentioned, and to a whole host of other conditions as well when they do. Just like Neuralink is going to stoke out paraplegics. I mean, okay, yeah, yes, and. I mean, yes, and. These are all very wonderful things. And I wholeheartedly applaud the tireless efforts of our good friends at MAPS, who went to the effort, and it was an absolutely tremendous amount of effort to jump through every single murph and furf and hoop you have to jump through to establish to the satisfaction of a deeply paranoid and actively litigious central government that these things can and indeed do what we all knew that they would do before the study got started. Like, they had to do a double-blind study. And everybody knows who got the drugs, right? But they had to do it, and they did it, and it took many hundreds of people, many thousands of hours, and it cost many millions of dollars to do it. And they are human heroes, and they ought to be commended for their efforts. And I do commend them. I knelt down in front of Rick Doblin on a stage during a panel, and I thanked him for all of the hard work that he has done. And then I asked him what it's going to take to get telepathic insensitivity syndrome put in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders so that we might be allowed to treat it. Because, you know, a lot of people suffer from that. It is as is a common and fully treatable form of hyperspatial occlusion, isolated ego syndrome, time blindness, which causes the sufferer to experience life as a sequence of causally determined events. They don't let me talk at MAPS no more. No, I'm not invited to the ball. Rick Doblin loves me, and, you know, a whole lot of people love me, and a lot of people really know about the whole herd of buck-ass naked woolly mammoths that are wreaking havoc in the middle of the conference room there. And they can code switch, too, when they go over to the ayahuasca track, which gets to talk a different way about entities and stuff as long as we focus on the potential for as a healing modality. But like I said, it was expensive to do all of these very necessary studies, and it necessitated one hell of a PR blitz, positive media attention to keep all of the donations coming in, and to prime the political environment. And they really got it, too. It's been incredible how positive the media has been. You can say psychedelics are good things on TV as long as you cast the appropriate spell, like in the presence of a license, and they want me to go faster, so... But that's not the whole truth. And you can't sweep the trickster underneath the rug, because that is exactly what it does. It says the quiet part out loud, and it dissolves the artifice of the ego. And I think it's been waiting while we pretend that we have banished it by writing it out of the narrative, because for sure a lot of squirrely shit has happened when psychedelics were abused, right, for exploration. Or, for God forbid, they were used recreationally. But that was not within the context. Okay, fine. And you can say whatever you got to say not to scare the straights and the investors to keep the gravy train a-coming. But you got to know that gravy has been spiked with psychedelic drugs. And there's a generation of newly minted psychedelic therapists who have got certified online. And it's true that they have paid their fees. But I don't think they all have paid their dues. And the trickster shatters illusions of the ego, right? There's potential for transference that many of these fine people could not possibly see coming. And there will for sure be all of the scandals and all the folks that are developing novel psychedelics for deployment in controlled contexts that may be addictive or deleterious or otherwise extremely tricksy at larger doses when used outside of those contexts, without regard for the fact that the street finds its own uses for things, and in order to patent a new drug, you have to publish the synthesis and, like, what kind of an entity attaches itself to corporate psychedelics in the first place. I mean, they're actually calling it polymorphe. It writes its own Marvel movie. I mean, the list does go on and on. They're going to make me stop. But I'm running out of time. So let me be clear that I am not trying to say that what we have wrought is not good or that we should not proceed. We must proceed, and we must succeed, and we must also fail in certain ways in order to evolve. But we also ought to do the trickster honor, since we are explicitly working within its well-known domain. Because the more we allow ourselves to believe that we have squeezed it out, the worse it's going to go for us. We need to find a way to build it into the narrative and to anticipate the pranks that will be coming. And we got to admit to our miraculous medical clinic is floating on top of a fathomless sea, and that there are mysteries in the deep that we know not of. And we need to develop some resilience and a sense of humor about the process of our ongoing evolution, in which we have privileged to play a very vital part. That was just shit talk. Ever higher.
Ladies and gentlemen, give it up for the TeaFaerie. Yeah. Thank you so much. So, our next speaker really needs no introduction. He's right up here in the blue shirt. We can't get him down here right now. John Sinclair is the reason why we're here today. John Sinclair is the reason why we have so much activism in the state of Michigan. John Sinclair helped kick off hashbash to help basically, in so many words, give it to the man, to show that, you know, we can smoke and we can use our entheogens, and we have a right to. It's an honor to introduce him, and it's a pleasure to have him today. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome John Sinclair.
Thanks. Hi, everybody. Can you hear me now? Okay. I don't have a monitor, so I'm just flying by night here. Nice to be out here on a beautiful day in Ann Arbor at the university, which, of course, in partnership with the city of Ann Arbor, formally, has opposed our drug activities for as long as they've existed. We started the hashbash in 1972 here on the Diag to essentially to extend the middle finger to the University of Michigan and tell them, fuck you, we're going to smoke marijuana anyway. We're going to smoke marijuana wherever we want, whenever we want, and we're going to get it whether it's illegal or legal. Same thing with psychedelics. It's amazing to me to see the medical profession pumping for the legalization of psychedelics because for all these years they've been dead set against people getting high on psychedelics. During the beautiful years of the hippie era in the 60s and early 70s, we proselytized for the use of LSD by all citizens in order to change the basic structure of our nation from being an ugly, oppressive place that fucks over people all over the world to an enlightened country where people are given a place to live, their health care is taken care of, and if they got medical problems, they got free health care. That's what we're looking for. That's what expanded consciousness is about. It's about having a better life for people. And here in America, we got a long way to go. It took us all these years to get the motherfucking police out of our ass. I've never been able to understand what business do the American police have inside our minds. We didn't hire them for that. We hired them to stop criminals, to stop people from killing each other, from stopping taking your stuff, not to stop you getting high. America should encourage people to get high. I certainly do. I think of everybody. We used to have these great free concerts here in Ann Arbor. Ann Arbor used to be a great place. There used to be all kinds of great activities going on. Now you got the University of Michigan. They won. So this is their world. I don't like it. I like the one we had. Excuse me. I'm not a nostalgic person. I'm always looking for tomorrow. But when you come to something like this where we're all on the Diag, you know, I did this 60 years ago. What the fuck, you know? How long do we have to put up with this horse shit? That's what I want to know. When are they going to get the police off our backs here in America? When are the police going to, you know, and they got a candidate for governor in Michigan, a Republican that is a fascist. And she wants to spend $1 billion more on police in Michigan. Can you believe that? Excuse me. Usually the police are here keeping people from getting high. So they did that for about 50 years. They kind of gave up when they legalized marijuana. But, you know, our battle is never over with these people because they're trying to control us from top to bottom, from birth to death. I don't know. Why am I telling you all this? You know, this is what I believe. My life has been shaped by the experience I had with peyote in October of 1963. It's almost 60 years ago. My life was reshaped at that moment, and I've followed the lessons that I learned on peyote ever since. My activism, my work as a poet, a broadcaster, all the things I do. I put on the Ann Arbor Blues and Jazz Festival here in Ann Arbor, the greatest event they've ever had, for example. All of this is inspired by the peyote I took, and then I took acid every week for a few weeks in 1966 and 67 with about 15 other people, and that's how we developed our consciousness to go ahead as a group and challenge the authorities of Michigan and the United States. That meant, you might remember this scumbag. His name was Richard M. Nixon. He was our president for 8 years. He ruined this country. And then you had Ronald Reagan, the Bushes, and they had that creep called Trump. And they've turned this place into a nightmare. So at least we can still get up here and say whatever we want. But used to be, instead of saying they should legalize these drugs, they'd arrest us. If you got up here and advocated the use of marijuana, they would arrest you. So at least these things have gotten better. It's because of you, because of all of us who oppose these people. If you don't oppose them, they march over you like Hitler. The German people loved Hitler. They gave him everything, and consequently he tried to take over the world. Well, that's the way these people are. So, excuse me. That's enough for me. Legalize drugs. Thank you very much.
Guys, give it up. Another big one for John Sinclair. Thank you, John. Wow. Our next speaker, before I get on that, I've got an announcement to make, another one. Next Wednesday, September 21st, all day at the downtown library parking lot, the Common Citizens parking lot in downtown Ann Arbor, is International Peace Day. There's music, speakers. It's going on all day, so that's next Wednesday, September 21st. Try to make it. So John Sinclair was pretty much the first activist, if I can say it that way. And now we need some younger folks taking over and carrying that torch. Skylar Hawthorne is in her second year as a social work master student studying mental health and substance abuse, an experimental psychologist in U of M's Splat Lab and the president of the Student Association for Psychedelic Studies, which is why we're here today as well. She hopes to become a therapist when she graduates. When she's not studying, researching mental health, she's working on her own by getting outside, exercising, and making music with pianos and drums. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Skylar Hawthorne.
Hi, everyone. How do I follow up John Sinclair? I wrote this speech yesterday. First off, thank you all so much for being here today. I am here today because I believe that it is a fundamental human right to experiment with your consciousness. Humans have been doing so forever. In almost every documented culture throughout history, humans have used psychoactive substances for medicinal purposes. It wasn't until recently, in the 1900s, that one culture, one government, decided to restrict this ancient tradition and human right. Unfortunately, this government, our government, bore an outsized influence upon the whole world. So these restrictions spread perniciously. Our government says that freedom of speech is an inalienable right. Yet this government restricts our freedom of thought. And by restricting our thoughts, our consciousness, they are tangentially restricting our freedom of speech. With this logic, the war on drugs violates our Constitution. This is one reason why we are all here today, to fight for our rights. This is also one reason why I am now the president of the Student Association for Psychedelic Studies. Our objective is to create a space to discuss the growing body of research on the therapeutic potential of psychedelics. There's so many, as I'm sure many of us know. We hope to raise objective awareness of these uses, these benefits, and promote the fair and equitable access to these alternative treatments. Because for too many people, the standard treatments have failed. Antidepressants have roughly a 45% success rate. We need more options, and our advocacy here today will help us regain our right to these options. The government took them away, they can give them back, and we can make them give them back. If you want to continue fighting this fight beyond today, you can sign up for the Student Association for Psychedelic Studies right over there with my co-president, Hadley Huff. Who else here is a student? A few people, go sign up, we need you. This semester, we will be hosting a Psychedelic Therapy 101 event where we're inviting a psychedelic researcher to give a presentation. And, of course, we'll be going to Pizza House. Above all, though, we'll be making friends and having fun, as I hope many of you are today. It's been an honor to help host this year's Entheofest. While it's only the second Entheofest, I can imagine many more. I hope to come back in 10 years when our rights have been restored. I'll see you there.
Thank you, Skylar. That was awesome. Ladies and gentlemen, another reason why we're here today is because of Larry Norris. He's the co-founder of Decriminalize Nature out of Oakland, California in 2019, and has sprouted across the U.S. There's a DNA Ann Arbor, there's a DNA Michigan, they're in Grand Rapids and Ferndale and Detroit and mid-Michigan and Hazel Park and Sterling Heights. DNA-related policy is now passed in 7 cities nationwide, with at least 3 more cities looking to pass before the end of the year. Larry also co-founded Entheogenic Research Integration Education, which is also known as ERIE. They have a table here today. Check it out. It's a nonprofit organization which offers education and integration support for those interested in entheogens. Please give a round of applause for Larry Norris.
All right. Good afternoon, Ann Arbor. Woo! Who here is ready to take back our sacred plants and fungi? Everybody that's here? Fantastic. Thank you very much to Jim. Thank you much to Julie. Thank you very much to Decriminalize Nature Ann Arbor, Decriminalize Nature Michigan, the Entheofest crew, everyone that's here today, all the advocates and activists that have made this such a special movement. We're only about 4 years in right now, coming off of the help of all the cannabis movement, and it's really nice to see people wanting to take back their relationship with nature. Of course, last time I did this talk, I winged it, and this time I'm going to bring some notes, but September, here we are. September is an exciting month for Ann Arbor. We got the Entheofest that happened. September is also Entheogenic Plant and Fungi Awareness Month, according to Ann Arbor City Council, and congratulations to Hazel Park as well, who just voted for Entheogenic Plant and Fungi Awareness Month for Hazel Park as well. Also, this is a celebration of Mother Nature. I know we're all talking about these different psychedelic entheogenic plants, but at the end of the day, we're really talking about our connection to Mother Nature, and this is a celebration of that. And also, happy 2+ year anniversary now to Ann Arbor for being the first city in Michigan to pass Decriminalize Nature, entheogenic plants and fungi here. What an amazing crew. It was really beautiful to watch them all come together, and thank you to the city council members as well that helped out with that. It's nice to be back in Ann Arbor. My name is Dr. Larry Norris. I am the co-founder of Decriminalize Nature National, which began in Oakland, California in 2019 and now is spread across the world. I went to school here at Michigan, graduated in '98. I had some of my first profound mushroom experiences not too far away from here. So it's nice to be back in the city that really started it all for me, and really beautiful to see this amazing group of people coming together and sharing our respect for these plant medicines. Just so everyone knows, now this has become a national movement. We now have 15 cities that have passed across the U.S. We just had San Francisco pass recently, about a week ago, which is pretty exciting. Atlanta, Georgia is about ready to get on the map. So if any of you out there are interested, whether you live in Michigan or live outside of Michigan, our duty is really to help you, empower you, to bring this to your city council, to present this to your city council, to educate them. 20% of what we're doing is policy, 80% of this is educating people the benefits of these plants and medicines for both mental health issues, substance issues, but also for personal and spiritual growth. And Decriminalize is a movement all about the people. That's really key with us. We're seeking to rewrite our relationship with nature and reconnect with our ancient practices. And we help communities across the nation in proposing this policy to shift away. The 4 main categories that we work with when we're talking about decriminalized nature is mushrooms containing psilocybin, cacti containing mescaline, plant combinations similar to ayahuasca that contain DMT, and plants that contain ibogaine. So those are kind of the four main categories. The compounds that are involved with those are the phenethylamine and tryptamine categories. And it's been something that has been really beautiful to see the support behind this in all the different cities, bringing everything together, not as individual plants, but as a conversation about nature and our relationship with nature. And I think this is a critical and unique part of DN. Unlike other policy organizations, we are not just interested in decriminalizing use and possession. What we really want to do is make sure that people can grow their own. They can share it in community. They can be in ceremony with each other. And so important. This isn't just about we're decriminalizing use and possession so you can buy our product. This is about how do we empower you to make your own product? How do you empower you to connect with your community in a culturally relevant setting, one that works for you, one that can help you heal, one that you can kind of explore with. So that's a really big part of what we're talking about in this movement. Yeah, woo! That is really the ultimate thing to cheer about, right? Because we're here talking about a celebration of Mother Nature, and if we can't even grow plants, if we can't even grow mushrooms, what are we really talking about here? Put those prayers in your mushrooms, and those prayers are going to our experience and helps change society. And another thing we advocate for is the importance of self-agency over your own consciousness. There's other movements out there right now that are trying to monopolize. You have Big Pharma that's out there that's trying to figure this out. You got venture capital companies that are trying to figure this out. But it's really about you. It's about your connection to consciousness. It's about your relationship with nature. So keep that in mind. You know, we should be reminded by what happened with cannabis that medicalization or legalization without decriminalization will lead to incarceration. There's nothing illicit about you growing your own mushrooms because you're not buying their product. There's nothing illicit about you sharing in ceremony because you're not doing it in a state-controlled or regulated way. This is your approach, your connection to nature. And this is, the conversation we're having between decriminalization and legalization. Can we legalize? Can we legalize, people say. And yes, maybe that's something that can happen down the road, but do we need to legalize the sunshine or the wind that's blowing through the trees right now? Do we need to legalize these beautiful trees with all the beautiful leaves on there, which will change colors? Do we need to legalize the abundance of nature? Do we need to make sure that there's limits on nature? No, we don't need to do any of that. We just need to remove the criminal penalties and let us work with these plants and mushrooms like we've always done. And I don't know what I'm doing on time. How am I doing on time? Still pretty good? Okay, cool. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, do you want Big Pharma to be the only access point to consciousness expansion? Do you want profiteers to control and regulate how you engage with your own inner being? I say that's a big no, right? Big no. So our time is now. We need to come together in a unified voice, take back what has always been ours, our own sacred and fundamental right to have our own relationship with nature, free from government or corporate influence, free from state regulations and control. Who here is ready to take back sacred healing plants and fungi for the people? Yes. Plants and fungi that humanity has used for centuries, if not millennia. These are yours, and don't let anyone take away your right to explore consciousness. Thank you all for being here. If you want to check out me, I'm going to be at a table over here, where the gentleman over there is raising his hand. If you want to sign up and help out for Michigan statewide legislation, either in the legislature or through ballot initiative, come check out those tables in the minute there. Thank you again, Decrim Nature Ann Arbor, Decrim Nature Michigan, Entheofest, everyone involved. Thank you all for being here. Have a beautiful day.
Larry Norris, amazing man. Thank you, Larry. Another person, I was just sitting here thinking about this. We have so many speakers, and we wouldn't be here without them. And then we have so many speakers that we're not going to be here without them in the future. Jeff Hayner is one of those people that's here now, was here before, and will be here later, I'm sure. He represents Ward 1 on Ann Arbor City Council. He sponsored and helped champion the resolutions effectively decriminalizing entheogenic plants in Ann Arbor and helped declare September, the entire month, Entheogenic Plant and Awareness Month. He holds a degree in industrial design from the University of Michigan. He's married with 2 children, enjoys gardening, DJing, exploring the Great Lakes, and defending them from exploitation. Please welcome City Council Jeff Hayner. How'd I do?
Thanks, man. Hey, thanks everybody for being here on this beautiful Sunday. It's really, really something. It's hard to believe it's the second year already. So I'm going to keep it short because there's been so many great people coming up here telling you things, speaking about their experiences and the truths that they've experienced in their relationship with entheogenic plants. And, the most important one is you got to be true to yourself. And these medicines help you do that. These plant medicines help you do that. And that's going to make our world a better place. So as Jim said, I'm on city council until November. I decided not to run again. I'm going to recommit myself to some other causes here in our community, and there are many. This is an important one. I actually believe, unlike some of the other speakers, that government shouldn't even have a say in this whatsoever. I don't think government has any business telling us what we should do, what we should grow, gather, and give to each other. And it's a shame that we have to work through the legislation to get back rights that are natural rights in our community and nature's rights. But, that's the world we live in, and so I do applaud those who help with that, but I think it's a shame that we have to do that. When we wrote the resolution that effectively decriminalized these plant groups, we were very specific that there should be no commercial use allowed. And one of the reasons for that was because this is about decriminalizing nature and about our relationship with nature and the natural world. And all too often we've seen in our community, especially with land use, that the commercialization or the commoditization of land use is sort of like a bummer. It's not the right path we want to be on as a community and as a planet. And so that's why we had no commercial use in there. And of course, the very day after we passed that resolution, there was a sticker on a phone pole downtown that you could QR code and buy mushrooms, And so some goofball friends were calling me Mushroom King and all this, and it's really not like that. But I appreciate the folks who are out there trying to spread the good word and spread the spores and so on, but we got to keep it on the down low for a little bit until we figure out what's going on with this. So I wanted to say for a friend of mine, a longtime DJ friend, and Jim did say I DJ. I used to work at CBN, WCBN, and these aren't for everyone. It's a very powerful medicine. And folks have, as the movement grows and as the awareness and popularity of these entheogenic plant groups grow, we're going to have people who try them out. They're not ready for it. They're not trying them in the right environment. And that's one of the fears that we had around allowing commercial use, was that it would just be sort of a popular kind of party thing, and people wouldn't be approaching it with the respect that's necessary for these very powerful medicines. And so if you're here for the first time and you want to check it out, I highly recommend it. You speak to some folks at these tables and you find a practitioner or someone who can help you approach it from the proper mindset and the proper healing perspective, because that's really what it's all about. Last night we had a little gathering, and it was great to see everybody again. And they said that one of the mantras that's going around is to gather, grow, and gift, which is, again, reinforcing that notion that this is a gift from our planet. And it's something that you can just go out and pick. And that was my first experience, was down in Florida. A buddy of mine, we were racing bikes, and he said, hey, set my odometer. We're coming back on our afternoon ride. And we went back and we picked a bunch of shrooms out of the cow patties in this field down in Apopka, Florida, just north of Orlando. And so the notion that it can be gathered and grown and be a personal thing, I think, is very important to this movement. And I thank you all for respecting that. I want to mention one more thing. In my brief time on council since we passed this a year or so, there's been sort of like a lot of money has flown into politics in this community. And it's not been good for the community. It's not been good for nature. And we've had hundreds and hundreds of acres go under the blade here in Ann Arbor, where people believe that the highest and best use of land is residential housing. And, it's been a real bummer to see these sacred areas go down. There's a couple up in my ward, and there's 70 acres that are coming up for consideration right now. And I have no doubt with the makeup of our current council that it too will go under the blade. But there's sacred white pine groves and all kinds of things there. And I just want to I just say again and again to people that this land doesn't belong to us. It just doesn't. It's not ours to exploit and cut up into little boxes and sell so you can maintain your seat or climb the Democratic Party ladder or whatever it is you're doing. And so I was heartened to find that in our community, there's a group of mostly young people who are acting as forest defenders. They've been out there in a project called Concord Pines, where they chain themselves to the clearing equipment, where they rode up in the trees, they sat up in the trees on platforms, and they did all they could to get the message out that this land belongs to everyone, not just a developer. And that was, it was really heartening for me to see that happened there. That there's a future, that there's people who care about our community and care about our land and the natural spaces, and they understand that the nature belongs to everyone, and not in a way that we should subvert it to our wishes, but in a way that we should feel blessed that it allows us to exist here on the planet. And so I wanted to just give a shout out to the Forest Defenders and the Concord Pines people. And when I'm done with council, I'm going to advocate for much more direct action around responsible stewardship of our lands and our water. And so I think that's where I'm headed now. And I want to thank you all for listening for a few minutes and for really coming out here to learn and share what you've learned and seen here today with others so the movement can continue to grow. So thank you.
Jeff Hayner, everybody. Thank you. We're still going here. We still got some great speakers. Folks, the next speaker is also responsible for having us here today. She's the president of the Students for Sensible Drug Policy here at the University of Michigan. She's a master's student of social work, and she's also an instructor at University of Oakland University. When she's not doing activist work, you can find her spending time with her 14-year-old dog, Gracie. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Allison Boehnke.
Hello, I'm Allison. I'm the current student president of Students for Sensible Drug Policy at the University of Michigan. First of all, I want to thank Jim and Julie for this opportunity to speak, and all of you for being a part of this beautiful event. This is my first festival, so it's really lovely to see you all out here. When our club first started talking about tabling this event, I admittedly had a hard time pronouncing Entheogenic and Entheofest. Something about the words, like on paper, really tripped me up. With help from my fellow club member, Derek, who is a PhD student in English, I learned how to say the word properly. So he broke it down. En meaning in, theo meaning God or having to do with God, and gen meaning to create. So put it all together, these plants and fungi are believed to bring us closer to God or a godlike experience within ourselves. Think of enlightened or one with nature or just bigger and freer than our everyday lives. But we aren't here for a dictionary lesson unless you're a word nerd like me. We are here to celebrate entheogenic plants and fungi and all of their benefits. But entheogenic plants are not the only way that people can have these experiences. There are other types of drugs and substances that people can take. And SSDP wants to advocate for safe drug use for all people regardless of the substance. Entheogenic plants were decriminalized in Ann Arbor in 2020 and then countywide in 2021. How cool is that? Like, how awesome is that? That means that people being in possession or consuming these plants are no longer punishable by law. This is a celebration would not be possible without the reversal of these laws. So I'm standing here in front of you today to advocate for harm reduction, bodily autonomy, and coming together as a community. Think of the benefits all users would feel if we focused on harm reduction and public health as opposed to criminal justice. Join me and SSDP in advocating for sensible drug laws to benefit all substance users and their entheogenic journeys, and work together to decriminalize all drugs. Thank you.
Allison Boehnke, ladies and gentlemen. Hey, folks, does everyone have their cell phone on them? Because if you don't, I might have your cell phone in my back pocket. It looks like this. It's got a gold case on it. The screensaver is Planet Earth, which is very fitting for today. Anyone lose a cell phone? If you didn't lose a cell phone or you hear somebody that lost one, I'm going to give it to the library. and that's where it can be picked up. Okay? Thank you, everyone. I think we have Jamie back there. Our next speaker, you can thank for helping get cannabis legal in the state of Michigan. And you can help him for all the other things that are happening right now, because he's always working in Lansing with politicians and just helping with this whole movement. Jamie Lowell was part of the first cannabis dispensary operation in the state in Ypsilanti at Third Coast. He helped to form the first Cannabis Industry Association in Michigan and was author of the MRTMA, the law that legalized cannabis in our state. Currently, he's the vice chair of the Michigan American for Safer Access chapter. He's a member of the Michigan Cannabis Freedom Coalition, and he's on the board for Great Lakes Expungement Network. So he's doing a lot of great work out there. Let's give him a big round of applause, Jamie Lowell.
Yay, buddy. Have fun. All right. Thanks, Jim. Hey, happy Entheofest, everybody. So, another success. I mean, thanks, everybody, for coming out here. Last year, I was asked to kind of talk about how cannabis and the movement, the efforts paved the way for the Entheo movement in some respects, and I used the city of Ann Arbor as an example, as an absolute ideal example. And, of course, not every place is Ann Arbor, but in this last year, a lot of people have stepped up, have committed themselves, given the time and energy, have used the same processes, generally had the same discussion about how these natural, beneficial, safe things can be very helpful, and people shouldn't be prevented from using them, and have just gained a lot of ground this last year. And I just want to make sure that everybody appreciates all the great work that these people have done. If we could hear for Decriminalize Nature and for all the local victories. And I also want to appreciate the event organizers here today, the artists, the sponsors, all the great presenters. Thanks, everybody, for being here. It takes all of us to push the needle, whether we're talking about cannabis or Entheo, and you have to contribute what you can when you can. These people are going to step forward and take the lead in some respects, but it takes everybody contributing a little bit to really move the needle forward. All right, so I want to make people aware of a couple of things that we're working on in cannabis community right now. One is Michigan State Police recently announced that for at least the last 20 years, their blood testing process has been inadequate and the results have been unreliable. If you've had some kind of an issue with driving and with cannabis and a blood test was used against you, there's reason to look at your case again. I would like to hope that the lawmakers get together and create a mechanism to relieve everybody of whatever they've had to go through from bad evidence prosecuting them. Now, the police use an arbitrary date of March 28th, 2019 as the date to start counting the cases that could be effective, and admit to at least 3,000 bad cases out there where people were arrested, jailed, fined, put on probation, the previous issues possibly exacerbated as a result of it. Those people deserve relief and they should get it, and that's one of the things we're working on. And of course, that date goes way, way before March 19th, and there's a lot more cases than just those 3,000. So another thing we're kind of looking out for is there are funds that are created by the adult use law to be used for research for veterans and PTSD and to try to prevent suicides. So we really have to make sure that those funds are spent correctly. There's a standard of studies that they're only supposed to be applied to, and there's an investigation kind of right now to make sure that that is the case. So there could be some things about that coming up in the news as well, but we want to look out for the veterans and make sure that this money gets used as intended. So the big money interests have tried this whole session to try to peel back rights of caregivers, to try to impose unnecessary, costly conditions on caregivers and patients, believing them to be competition to their big investments and bottom line and that kind of thing. Hopefully, it appears as though that those efforts have been thwarted, again, with these communities coming together and standing in the way, not letting people peel back stuff that we've all come together and earned over the years. and things that don't really make any sense anyway. So we still have the lame duck session, the session after the elections and before next year's new term begins, to get through and to be concerned about. And if nothing happens during then we've successfully thwarted some really bad intentions from people. So, and that's thanks to the business community, the people existing in the licensed community. That's thanks to the caregivers. That's thanks to everybody else who's concerned about cannabis and wants to make sure that we move forward the right way. Yep, so thank you guys. There's a few things coming up this next month. Some rallies at the Capitol. I believe October 11th is at least one. There might be some other things going on there too in the month of October. All the support just showing up at one of these events, at one of those Capitol gatherings. That's doing what you can when you can. Somebody asks you to make a call to your state lawmaker to support or oppose something. It only takes a few minutes, and that's doing what you can when you can. And as a result, we'll keep moving this needle forward. Please vote in November. That could make all the difference in the world. People in decision-making capacities tend to help shape the direction that we go in. There are people who are a lot better than others. So please participate and vote wisely. So, all right, anyway, that's all I really have to say. I really appreciate everybody being here. It really helps out. I really appreciate this great group of people for making so much progress. It's really impressive. Happy Entheofest, everybody. Hopefully see you next year.
Jamie Lowell, she's back to go to work. Ladies and gentlemen, this next person is one of our original champions and co-sponsors for the unanimous September 2020 vote to decriminalize nature in the city of Ann Arbor. She's from Ward 1. She's a lifetime advocate for personal freedom, spiritual growth, and helpful public policies. Ann Bannister continues to work on the connections between our ecosystem, the economy, mental health, and sustainability. Please welcome the great Ann Bannister.
Thank you so much, Jim. What's up, Ann Arbor? I'm Ann Bannister, as Jim said, former Ward 1 City Council member and former candidate for Ann Arbor Mayor. I'm deeply honored to be gathered here together with all of you talented and creative people and defenders of the earth as we continue to build our community. Thank you, everyone, for organizing this glorious event. There's too many to list, but Julie Barron, Larry Norris, Mike Williams, Cynthia Green, Councilmember Jeff Hayner, Jim Salame, and more. Thank you, Barking Dog, for being an early pioneer in joining us today. I also would like to thank Senator Jeff Irwin and State Representative Yusuf Rabi and our Washtenaw County prosecutors, Ellie Savit and Victoria Burton Harris, for their significant leadership and advocacy for issues we care about. Albert Einstein once said, logic will get you from A to B, but imagination will take you anywhere. Each one of us can and are pioneers and champions to help decriminalize nature and make an impact on our shared goals. Goals of improving mental health and addiction recovery, exploring the benefits of microdosing and the Grow, Gather, Gift model, strengthening our ties with indigenous groups and ways of thinking and environmentalists that are trying to protect our water and our tree canopy so that future generations can enjoy Mother Earth and our ecosystem as much as we have. I want to strongly encourage any elected officials or candidates who are listening today to, similarly to what Councilmember Hayner and I did, advocate and sponsor Decriminalizing Nature. Long after our names are forgotten, our legacy and the spirit of what we are celebrating and building here today will live on for multiples of 7 generations. During my 3 years serving on City Council here in Ann Arbor, while the majority of people are kind and decent people, there is an attraction at a city hall for a rather shocking preponderance of, to use an indigenous term, of Wendigos or Wendigos. And these sometimes can be identified as multimillionaires who are using their wealth and power not to benefit the public, but to make policies that will benefit other rich people with short-sighted thinking, where they have succumbed to mean, selfish, and greedy tendencies, and even will actively spread misinformation and false character assassinations of their opponents. So by contrast, in the Decriminalize entheogenic plants and fungi movement here today, I find, as you probably do too, a refreshing group of big-hearted, kind, wise, and gentle brothers and sisters who are seeking to use our power to improve and protect our public health and our cognitive liberty and be good stewards of the earth and our planet. So thank you all for being here today, and our work is not done. Please exercise your right to vote, especially this November 8. Look carefully for candidates who truly walk the talk and are willing to actively advocate for the issues that you care about. Let's end the racist war on drugs and avoid irreversible mistakes with the destruction of our woodlands and our ecosystem. And remember, if you're going through hell, keep going. Life is a solution in hieroglyphics to the questions we would put, and boldness has genius and power and magic in it. Keep on doing the right thing every day, everyone. Thank you.
Ann Bannister, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of you Ann Arbor folk know Ann. So the next speaker is an amazing man that is leading the charge for this whole movement in the state of Michigan. Mike Williams, a.k.a. Michael, served as Michigan's Initiative for Community Healing and the Decriminalized Nature Michigan Director. He's also the Director of Communications for Decriminalized Nature Ann Arbor. He sits on the board for the Student Sensibility Drug Policy. He's president of Dance Safe in Michigan. He's a community organizer, volunteer, intern coordinator for Disability Advocates of Kent County, and secretary for Michigan Psychedelic Society. Now, in his spare time, if he has any spare time after that list, Mike enjoys teaching others to the joys of mycology, making music, and working at concerts and music festivals, providing sustainability or harm reduction services. This is all the things we can all look into and become a part of, and Mike's the inspiration for it. Please welcome Mike Williams, Michael File.
Thanks, buddy. What's up, Entheofest? So we had Larry Norris earlier. We've kind of switched roles this year. Last year, he wung it and came prepared this year. Last year, I was super prepared, and I have no fucking idea what I'm going to say. But I've got lots of really important information that I do need to get to you. So hopefully this just flows naturally, and we all have a good time, and you learn something. So this past year... we made a launch with Senator Jeff Irwin and Senator Adam Hollier with Senate Bill 631. It was our first attempt at doing anything statewide, and of course it fell dead in committee as we expected. We immediately went for the ballot. That was the birthplace of the middle table you see over here, Michigan Initiative for Community Healing. I want you to remember that name because today's our relaunch for 2024. We are going to take the ballot in 2024 if the legislature doesn't give it to us before. So I'm going to tell you how we're going to do that. 1 month from today, every one of you are going to get the day off of work. 1 month from today, October 18th, you're going to do this. In Lansing, on the steps of the Capitol, we're going to do a rally. We've got a poster over here. If you haven't stopped over, sign the poster. These posters are going to be hung up at Lansing. We're going to have food. We're going to have entertainment. We're going to have great speakers just like this. But it's going to be our first time in Lansing. And why? Why are we going to Lansing 3 weeks before the election? Because we're going to say, hey, you had your chance with Senate Bill 631. And we're going to show them the 80,000 signatures we collected with no corporate money backing us. We're going to show them what grassroots in Michigan wants. And we're going to do something bigger, better than's been done anywhere else in this country. So a little taste of what we're thinking with that. Decrim all plants. Nature's law is higher than man's law. Say it with me. Nature's law is higher than man's law. You're going to hear that a lot from me. All plants. No limit. Home grow. But this is about social justice in the heirs of the drug war. This is about harm reduction and doing the right thing and treating people with problematic substance use disorders and people with PTSD and people with any other number of possible conditions that can be helped with this. We're going to speak up and we're going to say, no, we're going to do this better than cannabis. We're going to do this better than Oregon. We're going to do this better than the Senate bill that was in California that fell on its ass as well. Because all of those are trash attempts. We're going to do something actually rooted in social justice and not in corporate interest. So, we're going to quit putting people in jail for possessing or using drugs and not being violent at any point. Period. Defelonization of all drug use and possession. Along with that, expungement of all nonviolent drug use felonies and drug possession felonies. Opportunities to reintegrate into society. Getting into a psychedelic therapy program for addiction? Well, while you're dealing with withdrawals, you now have a plant-based alternative, you know, that poppy plant that we just decriminalized in this package. Far safer than, you know, Suboxone, methadone, or any of the other things they're going to put you on to deal with withdrawal, and much easier to wean off. Nature provides. When we blow this shit up and screw this up for ourselves, nature will prevail. Nature's law is higher than man's law. So Mich is also going to decriminalize. We're going to totally remove the paraphernalia section. That's what Dance Safe over here is about. The paraphernalia section in our law. So if you're carrying a spoon because you happen to be an open drug user, you cannot get an extra felony for possessing a spoon. Because you know what happens when you share a dollar bill or share a spoon? Hep C lives outside the body for 37 days and it lives on that. We spread that. Same reason we need clean needle exchanges, and the government backs that. Why do we have paraphernalia laws that cause disease, that increase harm and risk? Mich is going to do something bigger and better, and we're coming for the legislature starting October 18th. From that rally, when you all show up, and you are all coming with me. When we do, that's right. When we do this, we're then going to start a 3-week Twitter campaign. If your Twitter's not active, get your Twitter active. Follow Mich on Twitter, and we're going to go crazy at every single candidate that's running for office in this state. And we're going to get them on the record before November 8th. This new language is going to be formulated entirely by people from Michigan before anybody from out of state is at this table. We are doing this for the people, by the people, because we care and we don't want some corporate interest coming in and fucking this up like cannabis. So, I can't do this. We can't do this. It's you, right here. You are doing this right now by being here, and you're going to do this October 18th. 11/11 to 2/22. So a couple more things about the groups on the side here. If you want to get involved with any of them, every single table here has a QR code that says join our Discord. We have community there. You can learn about anything. You want to know what's going on in your local city? Boom, we got a channel for that. You want to talk about psychedelics and spirituality? Boom, we got a channel for that. Mental health. You want to join one of our committees? There's a channel for that. You want to show up and volunteer for Entheofest? Help us design this badass new logo like we have for Mish. Thanks, Stephanie. If you see Stephanie, she's also got some watercolors in our carpool that we're going to be drawing from soon. We had a carpool contest. Watch for those in the future. Go green. I don't mean state. So, yeah, join the Discord. Be there October 18th. I love you. Thank you. And God bless you.
Woo! That's right. That's right. Give it up for Mike O'File, everybody. Yeah, Mike's hard work has led to a lot of decriminalization in the other cities throughout the state of Michigan, as I mentioned. One of those places is Hazel Park. And Shan Vicious led the effort for decriminalized nature in Hazel Park to successfully decriminalize entheogenic plants and fungi. She also has worked closely with Michigan's Decriminalize Nature statewide campaign. She's an experienced user and an educator of plant and fungi medicines, and she was able to find her own success after integrating plant medicines with traditional therapy. Please give it up for Shan Vicious.
Thank you. Happy Entheofest 2022, everybody. My name is Shan Vicious. I'm the founding member of Decrim Nature Hazel Park, and I've been advocating for the decriminalization of entheogenic plants and fungi for the last 5 years. This year, on March 22nd, our city decriminalized entheogenic plants. This past Tuesday, September 13th, our city council took it a step further and made September Entheogenic Awareness Month in the city. I want to give a huge thank you to all the city council members and a special thank you to Luke Londo for co-sponsoring the resolution and providing us with support at every step of the way. But we can't stop decriminalization just on the city level. There's a racist war on drugs going on, and unfortunately, most of the victims look just like me. According to the U.S. Substance and Mental Health Services Administration, black men are 3.5 times more likely to be arrested for drug crimes than any other race. Who gets to decide what's a drug and what's a medicine? We believe in body autonomy and that the community should be the ones to decide what goes into their bodies. We should not live in a dual society where some are punished more than others for committing the same acts. Starting now, we have an opportunity to change by decriminalizing all drugs in the state of Michigan. This is why it's important for us to support the Michigan Initiative for Community Healing on the 2024 ballot, which will reduce penalties for all controlled substances, including eliminating life sentences and lifetime probation. By supporting the initiative, we might truly get the opportunity to heal. This will end financial hardships due to court cases and legal fees. It could even stop the cycle of poverty and crime that plagues brown communities. So come to the rally on October 18th, and like I've said, healing yourself is not a crime. Thank you.
Okay, everybody. We've just got a few more speakers here, and then we've got an incredible event that you're going to be able to spectate on that's going to happen right here in front of us. Our next speaker, it's a great honor to introduce her because she's one of the reasons why I got into this movement. She started, Decriminalize Nature Ann Arbor. She's the founder and executive director. She's also vice president of the Michigan Dance Safe and founder and president of the Michigan Psychedelic Society. She's co-founder of Decriminalize Nature Michigan, and all her work has been for this entire movement. She's a pioneer, obviously, of the psychedelic community, and for over 25 years has done extensive research and training in the health benefits and use of cannabis and entheogenic plants and fungi. She's devoted her practice at Blue Sage Health Consulting to helping clients find healing and relief as they incorporate their alternative practices into wellness. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up to the co-founder of the Entheofest and a great friend, Julie Barron.
Hi, beautiful people out there. Good to see you all. Yeah. Before Jim walks away, I just want to say a very, very big thank you to Jim Salame. Yes, Jim is the co-founder with me, and this event is, it was a vision of his, and it's amazing to see this vision come a reality. And he is a really strong powerhouse behind this event and all the things that he puts his mind to, and we really appreciate him. So thank you, Jim. You're like done. He's done. Okay. It's lovely to be here with you all the planning that goes on, and I get to see all of your wonderful faces. We all come here for different reasons, but it's centered around plants and fungi. It's centered around the liberation of these substances. It's focused around the sacredness and honoring the sacredness of these substances. They should be liberated. They should never have been taken away to begin with. And that is something we all agree with here, and that is something that we are working on. I have been working really hard in activism for the past several years, and I'm shifting my focus a little bit. Michigan Psychedelic Society is the group that started all of this in this area here many, many years ago, 5 or 6 years ago. And we're coming, we kind of, COVID happened and we couldn't have in-person meetings, and that was really the core and the heart of our group was having in-person meetings. And that was taken away for a period of time. So we focused on decriminalization, and that was really wonderful and successful and still in progress. But I'm focusing my attention back on Michigan Psychedelic Society and away from the political stuff a little bit. And so really what that means is that we're going to continue to be here and hold community events. We have a community resource page on our website. If you want to get linked to local psychedelic-based businesses and community groups and services and psychedelic-friendly practitioners, then you can go to our resource page and check that out. And that's on psychedelicsociety.org. Let's see. We also have a how to grow your own mushroom video. Decriminalization happened, but as many of you know, or even found out today, commercial sales is not allowed. So how do you source these substances? Everybody wants to know that. If you live in a decriminalized area, right, which is Ann Arbor, all of Washtenaw County, thank you to our Washtenaw County prosecutor team that was here, yes. Detroit, right, thanks to DN Detroit, which is also here, and Hazel Park, Decrim Nature Hazel Park, who is also here. So, because of all of those efforts, we have those decriminalized areas. You can grow your own medicine, and you can share with people. So if you'd like to learn how to grow your own, you can go to our table and get a little card. It'll show you about the video, and we can all learn. It's a lovely little hobby. So focusing back on the Psychedelic Society, we're going to keep holding community events. We are going to be a parent organization for the other groups that formed out of our group, right? That's going to be Entheofest, that's going to be Decriminalize Nature Michigan, that's going to be Michigan Initiative for Community Healing. And part of our goal is to get community together and to get all the organizations around us working together to provide all the different a network of different services for everybody. We're trying to fill in the gaps. Be patient with us. I know you guys want access to these medicines. I know you do. And for those of you who don't have it, know that we are doing this for you. That is our goal, that you will have access to these medicines. So get networked in, get connected, visit the group booths around here, and come on over and say hi. Thank you guys. Happy Entheofest.
Only a few more speakers left here, everybody. And then we're going to have a lot of fun. This next gentleman has been an advocate, activist, journalist, award-winning journalist at that, for, gosh, he's going on a couple of decades now. And he's been covering the whole cannabis movement the entire time, while he's also been serving in the movement. He's executive director of the Michigan chapter of NORML. He also sits on several boards dedicated to cannabis advocacy while writing an award-winning advocate brief. His credits are endless, including public relations director, Michigan Association of Compassion Centers, the Compassion Chronicles, the socialrevolution.org, is where you can read a lot about his stuff. As well, he's co-hosts on the show that I sometimes am on with Jamie Lowell called Jazz Cabbage Cafe. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a big round of applause for Rick Thompson.
How'd I do? You did great. You're going to do great. Thank you. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Entheofest 2022. I know after we finish the speakers, there's going to be a fantastic presentation from the Tamarian Project. Make sure you stay around for that. You will absolutely be amazed. And what I'd like to talk to you about today is grass, not cannabis, real grass. The grass over there. Grass is incredibly durable. The hooves of 1,000 horses can smash grass into the ground and it will still grow back again. Flames from the hottest wildfire can burn grass to the ground and it will grow back again. Even drought, terrible drought that lasts for months and months, grass will still grow back again as soon as rain kisses it once more. And even when the neighbor's dog shits in my yard, you're supposed to laugh then. It was delayed, but I'll take it. So even when the neighbor's dog visits my yard, the grass grows back again at that time too. And that's because grass is connected directly to the earth, and it can draw strength and power from the thing that we stand on all the time. But people and creatures, we are not created so. We do not have that direct connection to the earth. We do not have that pool of resources that we can draw upon when the world treats us with fire or with drought or with dog poop. So when human beings undergo a transformation to go from the artificiality of our current world into a more enlightened, a more connected world, one that we aspire to with the Entheofest and everything else that we talked about today, we must use tools created by the earth in order for us to mentally and spiritually plumb the depths of the earth. And those tools are the mushrooms, the fungi, the cactus, the things that God has given our planet in order to help us on our journey. And together with those natural gifts and the tools that we've developed and the intelligence that we've evolved into, we can create specific things that can help our people. And we know DMT does certain things, and we know that PTSD affects people in certain ways, and we can identify what plant-based medicines can best address those issues. But the important thing is that we have to leave grass on the earth. We have to leave the earth in a state where it can help us heal. And right now, as a society, I think you'd all agree we are not doing a very good job of stewardship of this earth. Can we applaud for bad stewardship of the earth? Kind of a weird request, I know. It's counterproductive. Don't worry about it. The fact of the matter is, we have to improve the way that we are in relationship to the other things that share this planet. And then we have to think about our planet not just as an item for us to plunder the resources of, for us to explore every nook and cranny of, for us to escape from, to go look to the stars for a place to live. We have to develop a plan that cohesively allows us to work with the planet that we have right now, the planet that we've destroyed, the planet that we really have a lot of work to do with. And the fact is, Entheofest is one of those opportunities for you to learn about all the different ways in which you can reconnect with that earth spirit, with that element that can help drive you to a more compassionate position about the earth. We have recycling bins around here, but I see people not using them. Even at Entheofest, people don't support recycling. We need to do more education both inside our community as well as outside. And as other speakers mentioned, we need to help make sure that our movement is as diverse as possible, because there are certain communities of color that could benefit more greatly from an exposure to natural medicines than some other communities of non-color. Can I get some applause for that? Let's recognize the disparities that exist in society, both from a wealth to a poverty level, from a racial level, on a continental level. And let's make sure that when we decide to stop farming a piece of land, that we do that with the full knowledge that people are starving in Africa. And why would we do that? Why would the breadbasket of the world choose to not feed the world? Why would that be our choice? For money? For finances? Because somebody in another state tells us that's what they want us to do? Fight against that attitude. Fight against that mindset. That's right. Scream about it. Fight against the attitude that says no farms. Fight against the attitude that says no entheogenic substances. Fight against the attitude that says you cannot progress as quickly as you want to because we are old and we don't like progress. Fuck them. Change the world around you, one person, one act, one day at a time. Thank you very much. Enjoy Entheofest 2022.
Awesome. Hey, I want to thank you all. I've been saying that it's because of all these people here, but it's because of all you people here that we're able to have this. And I'm so thankful that you've stuck around this long to see our keynote speaker, because we're really excited to have him. We're honored to have Mudu Baki as our keynote for Entheofest 2022. He's a master educator and specializing in metacognition, which is the awareness of one's consciousness and thoughts and understanding how to educate oneself. Mudu served as a spokesperson and principal organizer of the 2021 decriminalization of entheogens in the city of Detroit, my birth city. Thank you very much for doing that. Under the tutelage of Atty, also known as Grand Master Kalindi Lee, he studied African combative martial arts and sacred plant use and culture for over 20 years. In his pursuit, he was exposed to the knowledge and application, cultivation, and cultural history of entheogens. He has further continued his studies in ancient human history, metacognition, and entheogens via travel on several continents around this globe. Ladies and gentlemen, please give a well-rounded applause of love for Mudu Baki, our keynote speaker today.
Thanks, buddy. Thank you, man. Thanks. Great. Have fun. Oh, greetings, family. How are you? All right. Look, I'm so glad the last speaker ended on a hype note, because I want to start on a hype note. But before I do, I want to introduce myself. My name is Mudu Baki. Okay, and a lot of people say, Mudu, what's your real name? I say the name I told you. Now, as a black man in America, I was given a name. But there became a point in my life in which I had to expand because of untruths and lies that were taught to me. And so at a point in my development, I had to reclaim my name and reclaim my identity. And so this is the name Mudu Baki, one who is worthy of great praise. It gives me a focus. Now, let me just give you a context why and how I got to the psychedelic space. I got to the psychedelic space just entering my 20s. By the time I had entered the space, I had buried 10 of my friends, and 23 of them were in prison, most of them under the Drug Law Act. I found myself isolated, to say the least, and I was looking for a way out, a better expression of who I was and who I am and who I could be. That's when I came across the great Kalindi E.E. And many of you may have a sticker, so if you have a sticker, if you don't have a sticker, make sure you look them up. But it's been a process of refinement, of trying to relate and elaborate and collaborate and figure out a new modality. My original thrust into this space was trying to find a modality of liberation for oppressed peoples. Yes, I did the petitions, I did the protests, I did the sit-ins. I found nothing that was more liberating than the sacred plant medicine. And so immediately I shifted and pivoted to saying, I can create revolution in people's hearts. To hell with revolution in front of an institution. So here we go. In those days, 3.5 grams was considered a maximum dose, so my teacher said, to hell with that, we take double. I took double, he said, take more. And so as we ended up, he became known as the high dose person. They say, why would you do the high dose? They say the higher the dose, the greater the reset. And so now we look at a situation in which now people talk about 7 and 10 grams like it's nothing. Well, that's a beautiful thing. Why is that? Because we're expanding our understanding of this space. I recall the first Entheofest I came to, we were all here rallying in support of mighty Ann Arbor and their effort to get decriminalization. As a matter of fact, they had just about had the win guaranteed, and we were here to celebrate that. A year later, we came to rally to support the effort in Detroit. But guess what happened before then? Hazel Park got online, and a bunch of other cities got online. And so the second time I was here, we were celebrating 2 victories. We were celebrating Hazel Park coming, Ann Arbor already online, and Detroit pending. So now I'm here again. And we can celebrate Detroit, Ann Arbor, Hazel Park, and dare I say, a city near you, right? We are pushing for the state. We want the state. Why is that? Because we know that pain doesn't stop at boundaries. Suppression, oppression, depression doesn't stop at a county line. Oppressed human spirits don't stop at a county line. And so we want to make sure that no political lines limit us from freeing the human spirit. Now, I had to cut my thing short, so I'm looking. Now, what's going on now in Michigan is very important because we went from a little brother or sister in this movement to the leaders. The entire nation is watching Michigan. Why are they watching us? Because we've done it in ways that other places haven't. We've actually asked the voice of the people to be present. We've actually had the action of the people. We've actually had legislation that hasn't been tainted through politicians. And so now people are saying, oh, snaps, look at Michigan. They're kicking ass. They, city by city is defining and refining what it looks like to be decriminalized. We find an ability to have micro business and therapies. This is the beauty. So I'm asking all of you that are not involved in this decrim effort, I need you to go to this table and sign up immediately. We need you plus the 10 people you know to get out here and get organized if you want a place in this. You know what I'm saying? Because many of us, I know many of you have been out here fighting for years. Fighting for years, dealing with the same repression that we dealt with in the world of cannabis. And then we know that many sit to the side, right? We wait for the ink to dry, and then we come in with our capitalist notions. I'm asking you to press those people. If somebody's standing around just waiting for the legislation to pass so they can push their capitalist notions, I need you to walk up and challenge them to get some signatures. Walk out here and challenge a legislature. Show up at a city council meeting. Don't just wait for the bag. You know what I mean? It infuriates me because do something. Do something. It's not just about getting the bag or making money. Some of us have been so capitalized, and I can tell because they got a big bag, and I'll be like, have you ever experienced the sacred plant medicine? Oh, I did once and twice at a party. I can tell because your spirit is illiterate. You have no clue of what the hell you're doing. You really think it's about money. And it's a sad thing. So for all my money merchants out here, take time to take about 5 grams and get your fucking mind right. Nothing wrong with making money, but something wrong with staying a dummy. So here we go. When we go and we touch people and we give people this amazing experience, we find that their spirit is on fire. Just like in this individual experience, here at the U of M Diag has been the center of revolutionary resistance and creative problem solving. So just like in the cannabis movement, we're leading in the psychedelic movement. Just like so many people have graced this Diag to lead social movements through the country, once again, U of M is here, Ann Arbor is here. When people first had a taste, back in the late 50s, when the government decided to play with our population and experiment the impacts of this, they made a mistake, didn't they? because all of a sudden, out of this experiment and playing with the population came the Greenpeace movement, came the anti-Vietnam movement, came a strengthened and renewed women's rights movement, came a truly unified civil rights movement where our allies and advocates in the suburbs found the courage to join and walk with the likes of Dr. King. The government quickly realized, we done let a genie out the bottle, and they tried to repress it. And so 40 years down the line, they'll continue to try to repress this very potent and powerful technology that can transform our societies. And so this is why I speak about this, because too many of us are not familiar with the history. They're not familiar with how this was originally, the DMT was originally called telepathy, and how government scientists say, oh, snaps, this creates clairvoyance. This creates psychism. This creates psychic bonding. And it scared the crap out of folks because they knew that social revolution, a new human, a non-governable human was coming forth. And so now here we are 40 years later, and the tide is undeniable. The tide is undeniable. The question is whether it's going to be regated in the hands of the people, or we're going to let Merck and Bayer take over the discussion. I believe it belongs in the hands of the people. I know it belongs in the hands of the people. How does it stay in the hands of the people? This is going to hurt a lot of people's feelings, especially. How does it stay in the hands of the people? By avoiding the mistake that we did in the previous movement of cannabis. We allowed people to convince us that legalization was the smart way when it was really signing up to enter into a legal structure. The same people who oppressed us, we empowered them to oppress us on another level, to discern the winners and the losers in this cannabis space. Many of my community were losers, by the way, and continue to be losers. And so this is why every time they say 420, yes, it's 420 day, I say, fuck that, free my weed man. Because my weed man is still in jail. My weed man doesn't get a license and a fancy damn logo to hand out to people. No, my weed man has to wait for his daughter to write him a letter because he's locked up. So just a reminder, next 420, before you get high, look in the sky and say, free my weed man. Because too many people have suffered. Too many of my community and your community have suffered to pave the way. And just like these bricks in this diag, we stand on their backs in pride, arrogance, and indifference. Do not forget the people who brought you here. Do not forget the reason that we are here. Do not become backstabbers and turners on those people who sacrificed and still are sacrificing. I'm sorry, enough lecturing. When we speak about constitutional liberties, we talk about the freedom of speech, we talk about the freedom to own weapons, we talk the freedom to peaceably assemble, but let me ask you, what value is the value of peaceable assembly if you're out of your damn mind? What good is the right to free speech if you're restricted in your spirit and your mind? Your speech is going to be restricted. So in essence, we talk about the fundamental right of humanity, right? The right over our own consciousness. If you don't have right over your own consciousness, how do any of these other rights impact you? You're limited in your ability to exercise them. You're limited in your ability to realize them. So what we're fighting for is the fundamental right of human consciousness, and for us to have control over the human consciousness. We have a right over our own state of mind, and every human should have that sovereignty. That is the nexus of control. We see it in the media. We see it in whatever curriculums. We see it in whatever influences we have. Sovereignty of the mind, sovereignty of the human thought. That is the main thing that's been suppressed throughout history. We say it was freedom of speech, but thought came before speech. When we see people repressed politically for their actions, guess what? That thought became before the action. So when we see political prisoners locked up for a behavior, essentially remember they're being locked up for their thought. This movement is the most important movement to human development that you will know. Because without humans and their sovereign ability to make up their own understanding of their own waking reality, how can you defend that reality? We move on. Your right of protection from an oppressive government. This is what we push for, right? Your rights to be protected from a repressive government. your rights to be protected from a repressive government. We know that government plays a role, but also plays a role in trying to control populations. We also understand that government picks winners and losers. And to many people, they are left on the loser side, and to too few are left on the winner side. We are here to challenge the distribution of power. We're here to challenge the distribution of money. We're here to challenge the distribution of access to this plant medicine. This is what we're about. So that's why I'm honored to be brought here, because too often this space is portrayed as a very lily white, middle-class white space. Well, guess what? We do mushrooms in the hood too. And when we do mushrooms, sometimes I'm dealing with a cat that's coming home from 15 years with 4 slugs in them, who got memories of police repression or drive-bys, or memories of friends dying on the streets. See, we're dealing with a deeper level of healing. And this is what I challenge us all to do. When I first started, it was really cool. I would get with all my open-minded friends, and they'd be like, oh, man, let's, and they would get so much out of it. But then I hit a wall, because those people that were most hurt, they didn't have ears to hear what I was trying to offer them. Those people who could most benefit, they felt that this was something that was foreign and exotic to them and something that wasn't for them. And so I immediately made it my mission to make sure that those people who need it most get it. Because right now, it seems like the people who need it least have access. It's those people who have a stable mindset or a stable lifestyle, stable income and stable time to trip on the weekends and then come back and go to work and talk about it. But what about, the mother of 5 who's figuring out how to pay child care, or the lonely senior who's in his apartment who doesn't have that social interaction? These are the bubbles that we need to pierce. It's very convenient to get with the sexy, young, fabulous, and sophisticated and celebrated. It's much harder to go into the bowels of what we call human society and help those people who need it most. We need healers, y'all. We don't need more dealers. We need healers. We got work to do. We got substrates to make. We got techniques to be discovered. We have hearts and minds to heal. We have micro businesses and coalitions to form. And we have mental slaves to be freed. And in the name and in the words of Harriet Tubman, she said, I freed a lot of slaves. I could have freed a lot more if only they knew they were slaves. I freed a lot of slaves, but you could free a lot more, because you have to let them know they're slaves. So as we move forward, let us link up with communities, not your traditional community. Find your courage. Go talk to that person whose housing security is threatened. Yeah. See what it does for somebody who's at the so-called bottom of our society. Stir it up, y'all. Stir the bottom of the fish tank. Don't fall for, because when you take this, sometimes you can get a panacea effect. You could take these substances and you could be convinced that the world is perfect and that every injustice on the planet is part of a greater reasoning, a greater ecology, a greater algebra, and that all you have to do is sit and observe. It will seduce you like that. But if you go in enough and you do the hard work, you'll realize that this reality is this reality, but it doesn't have to be this reality. It's not all fairy tales and purple zebras, spurly, whirlies going through the sky. No, this is real heart intelligence. We use this to heal the hearts and minds of our society. Understand that this is a powerful technology. It's okay. I'm not going to take too much time here, but I want to say this. For all my people in the crowd, learn to cultivate. Why? Why do we learn to cultivate? Well, what happened with cannabis with thousands of people who didn't know how to cultivate? I'll let you answer that question. Learn to cultivate. All right? Understand the difference between decriminalization and legalization. So when you have that discussion, you don't confuse people. Because some slick politicians will tell you, no, legalization. And then they'll look at you the next day and say, no, you're not qualified to help your brother or your sister. You don't have the license. Legalization is asking for governmental regulation and enforcement. Decriminalization is giving the rights to the people. So next time you get confused, ask yourself, what is the law around buying orange juice? There is no law, right? Where do you get your license to buy tomatoes? What is the limit on the number of oranges you can have? See, that's the difference between decriminalization and legalization. Legalization is like, you're allowed to have 48 oranges. Any more than that, we can enforce you. And we need to inspect it and give you a stamp for it. Decriminalization is, you can have a backyard full of oranges. It's fine with me as long as you don't hurt people. So please understand the difference. Please understand the difference. Because the difference between decriminalization and legalization is the difference between 40 years of increased repression or 40 years of access for all the people who need it and could benefit from it. I just want to say I thank y'all for coming out. I thank y'all for being here. I thank y'all for coming to the booth. If I haven't met you, I would love to meet you. If you haven't crossed this way, go this way. If you haven't went this way, let's mix it up. Let's make community. Remember, we need you. Every one of you in this crowd, we need you plus 10 other people. 750,000 signatures. We need everybody in this court to get involved so that we can have this language in the people's language and it won't be muddled through political wranglings. So with that, I say peace, Entheofest 2022. Power to the people, all the time, all the ways.
Mudubaki again, everybody. So we have the Tamarind Institute that's going to do a performance for you, so stick around. It's coming right up. I just want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. It's the end of our show. Once the Tamarind Institute is completed, we'll call it a day for the second annual. I just ask, please spread this word out. Please let people know, like everyone's been talking about. Tell your friends. Tell people you don't know. People want to hear about this stuff. They need to know. And then as far as universities goes, if you see any garbage, pick it up. There's plenty of garbage bags around here. Let's make this really nice. We don't leave this place as better than we found it. And again, thank you so much for coming. I think these guys are getting ready, right? You want to come down and say something about this? Please do. Thank you, everyone.
So this is Tamarind Institute. This represents the home in which I come from. We're going to be in the courtyard. My teacher, Kalindi E.E., when I started this, I started in martial arts. And when you're young, you're thinking it's about kicking and fighting and punching, but he realized that the greatest enemy is within. And this would led me to the understanding of the sacred mushrooms. But as you know, through sacred mushroom use, you find a new understanding of your body and you want to learn how to express it. For eons, people have used their understanding of the sacred space to learn martial sciences, ways to defend themselves. So I'm proud and honored to speak on behalf of my family, my group. This is Tamarind Institute. We specialize in Kemetic fighting sciences, ancient Egyptian fighting sciences, as etched on the temples of Abu Simbel. Why do we use this? For several reasons. One, to defend and protect, but more importantly, to understand how the transmission of knowledge goes. And the transmission of knowledge is peer-to-peer. It's a friendly exchange of information. Within this dance of culture, we learn how to protect, defend, and honor our communities. We also learn the importance of physical fitness. Also learn the aspects of African culture. So I'm humbly here to speak through this so we can understand aspects. All our fighters, we salute our drummers because our drummers are the keepers of rhythm. They keep the pace of life. In our tradition, we recognize that. Similar to the heartbeat, it keeps the pace. And we wear red and white. Red is very sacred. Red symbolizes the sacred blood of the menses. And white represents the semen. It represents the red and white, which contributes to life. The sacred, divine, masculine, and feminine. We'll demonstrate a couple things. One of the things is an animal system. We learn certain animals as a way to get better in tune with nature and those inner faculties within. You learn how to achieve trance state and to move beyond your sometimes immature worldview. And through achieving trance state and identifying with animal, you're able to cleanse out some of those, let's just say, less than perfect impurities. So, with no further ado, y'all brothers, are y'all ready? Ready to roll? All right. With no further ado, this is the Tuffelmire Institute of Traditional Fighting Sciences. This is our head technical instructor, Ramasu E.E. He is the son of Kalindi E.E.
Yeah. Okay. Basically, when the sound goes out,